Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what is this, week four? We're already in week four of Action Zone Tampa. And we're going to start with highs and lows, and then we'll jump into what we're going to cover today. Actually, today I'll just give you a heads up. We're going to cover two worksheets. We're going to cover the written sales process, and we're going to cover the milestone map. And then we're going to talk about customer relationships and customer channels. So that's on the agenda for today. So highs and lows. Anybody excited about what happened this past week? Anything special?
Well, that's kind of underwhelming.
I'll go first.
All right.
How
And
is
then
everybody
and then we'll
doing?
get Matthew. Matthew, raise your hand next, so we'll get Sheree. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me turn my volume up.
Hmm.
Well, a high for me this week. I went to it actually was a disaster relief convention. I got tickets for, and so I met a lot of people and learned a lot of things about, about how they're helping uh during disasters. FEMA was there, so a lot of cool agencies, how they can build bathrooms and the porta potties and uh, those like the RVs for like the first responders. So when they go to disasters, they can have that compound. So I met a lot of people, got a lot of contacts, and one in particular was a security booth. And with the person there, I went to get the candy, and he was saying that they do the Florida is the only state that has to have security guard or a police department. I didn't know that. My kids are older, so he said that so they provide the security. So he asked me what I did. So I told him what I did about transporting vehicles, and he said, "Oh, I can use you." He said, because they need a car. Every new school needs a car, and I'm buying them. So we have them, sitting here. Sometimes we have to find somebody to go there, fly there, and drive it back. He said, so I don't have to do that no more if I had you. And I said, you mean to tell me you don't have anybody doing that? He said, no. Sometimes we need like two or three
Wow.
cars to be sent here. He said, I don't care how you go get, you can drive. I don't care what you gotta do if you want to transport it. He said, but so I got his car and he's in Broward and they have one in Miami-Dade, but that was a great contact.
Definitely.
Yep.
So I got a lot of contacts through all the vendors dealing with the government contracts. So they wanna something comes up, I'll have a lot of partnerships. And so that was a really good high, and that's because of networking that you all talk about,
Yep.
Exactly. Exactly.
so that was a high.
I want to
The
comment.
low,
I want to comment on that really quickly and just say this, that you can look at the costs of what is costing them. You can So he talked about an airline ticket. There's also what he's paying the individual to drive. So how many hours it's taking them to drive and what they're being paid for that. And then the gas associated with the maintenance, if the car gets, breaks down, any of those things, those all go into the costs. So whatever you can look at their costs, you can look at your expenses, and then you can look at what your profit is and figure out what your price is going to be. You already have a good handle on your pricing, so I'm not saying that
right,
you
right.
should,
I know the pricing. It's
but
just,
yeah, but that was good information. Basically, I'm just saying, yeah, it's a validated information. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yes. So I was,
So if
just
somebody,
getting out there and talking. So that was,
right, so if somebody tries to question your pricing, you can come back and say, well, look at what it's costing you to move the car. It's costing you probably a lot more than it's costing me. And so, you can have that in your back pocket. So good stuff. All right.
yeah. And to me, it seemed like they didn't care about the price because it's not their money. They just, he said, he said, I don't care what you do. All I know is I need the car when the school gets built. I just said, okay.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anybody.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. And it was a disaster relief convention, so it wasn't like it was a transportation convention or anything like that. So that
No, because yeah, and it was just like, uh, and there was a few people. I went to a lot of booths, and one person wanted their personal car. They asked me about the price. So I said I gave them an estimate from like, I think we talked about that from Miami or Orlando to California. And that's what he wanted. And I said, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna say I don't know, I can't confirm it, but you're looking at about $1,200. It's okay, that's good, that's good. Which, of course, that price um has the fee already wrote in there. So if it's more, he's already knows what the price is.
right.
So that was as I'm doing the classes here and I'm thinking about how to ask questions and things like that. So I had a good time though.
Yeah.
And the low is I have not, well, I guess like the cold calling. I have to learn that process. I do a lot better when I'm talking to people in person than on the phone. And so that's tends to be continue to be challenging. And so that's something that I'm still working on. But one-on-one and in a big audience, I'm more comfortable. So yeah.
Well, lucky for you, we're talking about channels today.
Okay.
All right. Matthews, you are up next.
Good morning, everybody. So let's see here. Highs for the week. Got my business plan and that stuff like stitched all together with my SBDC guy. Got the loan package put together and he's working on floating it out there. So fingers crossed that'll come to fruition and I'll get, next container into production and all of that. So there's progress there. And coming off of doing my taxes and everything, uh, come to find out like I should be on payroll. So I got that set up this week. So I'll be getting paid Monday after next. First paycheck in 2.5 years or something like that. So that'll be good.
That is a huge milestone, Matthew. Just sometimes the first question someone asks you when they're interested in your business as a potential funder or investor is, do you pay yourself? Paying yourself is a threshold that so many people don't get to for a very long time, if ever. So when I saw your post about needing a payroll service, I just applauded you from this side of the screen because that really is a huge milestone, much more than you can think, and it'll become more obvious as you continue to grow your business and hire your next person.
Which I'm hoping to be able to get something worked out for doing my commission-based sales rep kind of test position thing here soon-ish. But carts and horses. But there's progress there. As far as lows, there was self-doubt in with trying to do that. Finding a payroll provider and whatnot, like, posted it to various groups and stuff. And I've got people, oh, no, it was looking for an accountant person to help me. They're like, I'll just do everything in Excel. It's like, I'm sure that works fine for you, but I don't think it works for me. But then I'm over here thinking like, well, maybe I should just be doing everything in Excel and get rid of QuickBooks and like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, it's nonsense. I think it's just noise, it's static. I have systems in place, like it's working, it's functioning, it's flowing. Like if somebody was able to run their business off of QuickBooks or Excel for 10 years, it's like, okay, cool, good for you. Were you audited?
Mhm.
You know, like, so that was like, there was a bunch of like, yeah, self-doubt this week that was just like in the way, static, just holding me up. And I know what you mean, Sherry, about cold calling. I started with a list of like 750 drug-free community coalitions that were funded by the CDC this year. I've got it down to like 600 or so that I've, reached out to in some fashion, but I've only called a couple of them. It's all been through like their contact forms or their emails. It's like this, so like, uh, I'm hesitant doing it. The phone calls are actually beneficial. I find I get a lot more information from them when I do actually talk to them, and it's rare that I encounter somebody that is, super salty about anything. And even then, it's just hang up and move on. Uh, can't internalize those rejections in any way. And I got to get over that stuff. So it's like for me, cold calling and doing video is like the top hardest thing I can do. Sit there, talk to people one-on-one or video group talks and freaking whatever else. But like those two things, I don't know what it is. I got my own hangups too. Like, but so here's to like getting over that.
I
There
know,
was a
right?
guy, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rosie.
No, I'm glad we can relate.
Yeah. There was a guy in our cohort, a couple of cohorts ago, and I can see him in my head, but I can't think of what his name is right off the top of my head, that he had cold calling was a part of his business too. And he said, go for the no. You kind of know after you've been talking, making those calls for a certain period of time, what your success ratio is in even engaging in a conversation, and then your success ratio for landing the sale. So I agree with Matthew and Sheree. I hated in insurance and in real estate, hated those cold calls because I can't stand rejection. And that was, I couldn't grasp that they weren't rejecting me, they were rejecting the product, right?
Yeah.
You understand exactly what I'm talking about. But if you go for the no, it becomes a little bit easier to tolerate those hangups or the saltiness or the non-sales, the unproductive calls, because you have to get through those to get to the stats of the yeses. So just passing that on because I thought that go for the no was really a great way of looking at that really tedious task of calling.
Yeah, part of that whole like fail hard, fail fast thing. Get to the point right quick. Like, can I help you? No? Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that was JD. But I wanted to offer this perspective also is activate your curiosity. So you said that when you make the calls, you learn some things, and you pick up some things. So, so as you go into it, say, what am I going to learn from this call? When I make this call. So the biggest thing for me was having my opening comment, my opening statement, because that in my mind was going to determine whether or not I was going to be able to engage in a good conversation or whether I was just going to be rejected right off the bat. So my first kind of thing was, well, what are those comments that get people's attention and lower their defenses? That's the biggest thing, is because when somebody picks up the phone and they don't know you, they're defensive right away. I don't know you. I don't know why you're calling me. I'm busy. I have stuff to do. So if you can have that first sentence that is like kind of a what's in it for them in this call, and then you could get a conversation going, then it just kind of eases the whole process. And you start going, oh, let me make this next call because, I need to know something. And it changes the game. At least it did for me. So I'm just offering that as a perspective.
Thank you.
And I'm the same with videos where I hate, I don't really think I do good videos at all. And I just like don't want to do them. But so what I've done lately, I'm doing a video every day right now. And I said, I'm going to try to do 100 videos by 6 months. And I don't care if they're awful. I'm just going to do them. And I know that over time they'll get better and they'll get better and they'll get better. So those are just kind of mind games I play with myself. Hopefully that's helpful.
It is. Thank you.
Terrell,
Daryl.
Good morning, everyone. So my my low is realizing there's not a lot of time in the day. And my high is that we went to a networking event Wednesday, either Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. And when we went there, it was like there's a lot of sponsorships here. There's people that sponsoring to be there and show what they do and things of that nature. So rather than me saying I do social media, I just asked, how are you marketing? How are you marketing? Then they tell me like everybody has a different problem, but it all relates to not knowing how to use social media. So that was a big eye opener. So my goal was to have or to collect 50 business cards. I fell short and got 12 out of 50.
Mhm.
That's still good because I'm able to measure the outcome. And then I start thinking, I'm like, hold on, that was at that event. What about all these other events? So I went on it was on I was on LinkedIn, and then I saw somebody that was posting that they posted an event. I went to the website, I scrolled down, I see a whole bunch of sponsorships or people that's sponsoring the event. I said there's marketing or there's business everywhere. There's business everywhere. So that was a high for me. Not only like when we drive around in the rural area or the area that I'm in, you got signs on the side that say one says clean carpet or want to clean your carpet or something like that. Then another one would say like there's marketing everywhere. There's marketing everywhere, which means there's customers everywhere. So just because I got 12 at the networking event, I can get 50 driving around, going to different websites, going to different events, going to different places.
Yep.
And it's just mind-boggling. Like there's opportunities here. And then we also have I made a post saying it's better to show rather than tell, because when you tell and people see, it's like this is what I'm talking about, and you can paint your own picture. I did that. It was like the relief is like, oh, this is what you're talking about. This is what you do. How can I work with you? I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Presentation is key. Presentation is key.
You learned a lot this week.
Yes.
We're gonna have to start. I'm gonna have to start making a list of terrorisms.
It's realisms.
The realisms.
Oh, and one more thing. I like how Sherry went to the event, but when she went to the event, it was an outcome that she wasn't expecting. It was like you never know who is going to be in the room. People always say get in the room, get in the room. But now that I understand why, it's like, okay, you're getting in the room because you're only one customer away from changing your life, one conversation away from changing your life. And it's
Yep.
just really like, yeah, it solidified that I'm on the right path because I understand the problem that I'm solving rather than me coming up, I was saying like, hey, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. I watched a video with Myron Golden this morning. He was saying when he sell, he communicate with the person, ask them what's their problem. He want to serve. And then one more realization, I apologize. So with content, it don't get me wrong, it's a lot. Making it, posting it, editing, can being on a consistent basis, that is a lot. Furthermore, it's so beneficial. On Twitter, it was this post and it was talking about how different businesses are good to buy or are boring, but they make a lot of money. One guy was like, good luck getting rich from it. Another gentleman coming was like, I do this full time and I just made $1,243 in 3 hours. He was like, now I'm going home. Then I come in and I was like, bet on yourself and the sky's the limit. That one post, that one post has over 20,000 views.
Wow.
And it made sense. It's like, oh, go back to the events. I don't have to host the events. I don't have to control the narrative. I just have to get in there, just add my input in, add my professionalism, add everything, and then it'll come like that. So that was a major
Very
it's called solidification, I believe. If that's the word.
very good. Anybody else want to hire a low? No, you don't have to share. That's okay. Russ, you have the floor.
Okay. Do you have highs or lows?
I have lows, but my high is that so many of you reached out to me in the last couple of weeks,
Mhm.
and it was heartfelt. So thank you.
My high, actually, I'm just going to talk about something that happened last night. There was an event at the Embark Collective called the CEO Experience, and the guest speaker was a guy named Victor Young, who I've known for years. Victor is just an incredibly successful entrepreneur. He's owned a BMW dealership, he's owned a Lamborghini dealership, he's owned a soccer team, and he bought a couple of helicopters that he flies, and he's just doing really, really well. I actually met him in Toastmasters when I was a member of Suncoast years ago. His wife Tia was in the club, and then he joined the club for about a year. And he just had a bunch of really good insights. And one of the ones that I take away specifically is he says, whenever I'm in a room, especially with high wealth individuals, I ask myself why I'm in that room. What happened that enabled me to be in that room? And he said, if you don't know why you're in the room, you're not a player in the game, you're an employee. And I just thought that was really, insightful as to one of the things that he talked about. And he also mentioned something that I've been talking about for years, and it was just great to hear him say it from the stage, which is you need to know how much you're worth per hour. And I actually did a podcast on your value per hour and how you break that down, because then you can measure against other activities. Should you be cutting your own lawn? Should you be, doing certain activities where you might be able to pay someone a lower rate than you would make during that same hour? And so he said he always gauges his decisions by how much is this going to impact my finances to go do this thing that this other person is asking me to do. And I just thought that was really insightful. And the whole evening was a high. Um, there was another guy there who was really good in he was talking about AI, generative AI, and he said, I know all this stuff, I just can't really understand how to leverage it into a business. I've been doing this for like 5 years and I know this stuff. And I said, well, it's a great business opportunity, but what problem are you dealing with? What problem are you solving? He was like, oh my God. And then he said he had wanted me to introduce him to somebody. And I said, hey, that guy is really interesting. He goes, I'm not even interested in the networking. I just want to get home and take action on what you just told me. So it was really interesting. But that was my high. That was definitely a high for the week. I can't really think of any significant lows that I had this week, so I'll just move on. All right, so let's jump into rather than take a break. I want to jump into the worksheets because we have two that I want to go over, and the first one, these two are going to be easy, not like the other ones, which were really intensive. The first one we're going to talk about is the written sales process. And the written sales process is the culmination of every other worksheet that we've talked about. And I've studied many written sales processes. I have books up here on sales processes, and they usually run 10 to 15 steps in the sales process. And they talk about things like dealing with objections and just all these different things. Well, when I take a look at the small business owner, the solopreneur, we have to simplify. And if it's more complex and complicated, then we procrastinate. And when you look at some of these other sales processes, and at least in my opinion, there were things on there that as a solopreneur, you don't really need to focus on. So I broke it down to these 4 steps. And these 4 steps in the written sales process are logical. I'm methodical in my approach, and these are logical. If anybody can dispute these, please dispute them and tell me where they might not work for you. So the first one is client attraction. If we're going to do client acquisition, we have to get their attention. So how do you get the attention of the decision maker? Cherie, you were very effective in getting the attention of decision makers at the conference that you went to. So you now have a sense to say, well, if I was able to connect with decision makers at that conference, maybe going to conferences is where I can connect with other decision makers, because that's kind of where they gather. Where this information comes is from worksheet number 3. When we talk hunting, fishing, and farming, those 3 categories on worksheet number 3 are where you pull the information that goes into client attraction. Now, on the written sales process, you're more specific. On worksheet number 3, you're throwing everything in there. Everything you can think of, you're just putting it in there. On this worksheet right here, you say, of all the things that I have thought of that are possibilities, this is the one that is getting me the most effectiveness. Any questions
Excuse me,
on that?
Russ, what
Okay.
page is that on?
Oh, we're back at the back of
137.
137. Yes. 137.
And please understand too that the worksheets have been renumbered. So when Russ tells you what that, I think the written sales process is now worksheet number 4. And what was worksheet number 4 is actually worksheet number 3. Is that correct, Russ?
It is correct. And I
Okay.
hate to tell you, but this morning I changed the numbering again.
My page 137 is something different.
It doesn't say written sales process worksheet?
In this manual?
Sorry, yes.
It's because you've now changed it to purposefully profitable.
Right, yes. Okay,
Yeah,
but it's
137 says mission mapping written sales process worksheet. It's the same as this.
I'm so confused.
Has everybody found it? Okay. All right. Any comment on client attraction? Okay. Now, once you get the attention of the decision maker, then you have to know what to say. How do you describe your process for delivering results? This is also a journey kind of, because someone will say, what do you do? And you'll say, this is what I do. And if they're interested, and I'm gonna use Cherie again, they ask, what do you do? And you said, I transport cars. And they said, oh, I need that. The next thing they may say then is, how do you do that? And in your case, they asked you, how much does it charge? You were able to give them that information because you had already thought about it in advance. And we did actually talk about the price list and having a price list and having a framework for pricing. And so that was helpful for you in that moment. And it enabled you to connect with the individual to say, oh, okay, this is, and their mind is running and saying, oh, this is what I'm currently paying. These are the problems I'm currently dealing with. This is what what I'm struggling with. And if you can help me with that, wow, let's do a deal. So what do you say? How do you describe your process for delivering the results in a way that they'll say, that's the solution for me? And in many cases, when you can demonstrate that value, they won't even ask you the price. So this goes back to worksheet number 2, when we talked about value proposition. How are you helping them make money, save time? How are you impacting them emotionally and psychologically with your product? So the education is pulled from that worksheet. The number 3 section there, the offer, what they get for what they pay. A lot of business owners don't think about that up front, and they trial and error their way to figuring it out, which could take them months to years to establish the pricing that works for the community that they're serving. So you want to think about that offer up front. I put an example in here. So if you're a coach or a consultant or life coach or something like that, you may say, or chiropractor or massage therapist, you may say, well, I offer 4 sessions at $150 each. That's your offer. 4 sessions at $150 each. You want to know what that offer is, how that offer is constructed. And then the final one, which again, you would think would be automatic, but how are they going to pay you? Are you going to invoice them? Are you going to take Cash App, Venmo, check, credit card? Are you going to set up something where you take half payment up front, maybe a third in the middle of the project, and then collect the rest upon delivery and approval? How are they actually going to transfer that money from their pocket to yours? You have to be clear on how that's going to happen. And if you have a product where it's going to cost you, say you're a contractor, a general contractor, doing some type of work such as that, you're going to have to buy materials. And you will, and you may have to hire a crew. Unless you have employees who do the work, you may have to go out and hire a crew. So you're going to need some upfront money. So therefore, you'll want to, collect some money from your client up front, and that's a standard practice. There's nothing unusual about that. But you have to think about how you're going to actually collect those payments. So what I'd like to do now is take 10 minutes, 12 minutes, we'll go to 9:55, and write what you believe goes into this space, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. So 9:55, we'll be back at 9:55. All right, let's jump back into it. So what I want to do first is just give you a refresher on worksheet number 3, which was your description of your avatar, who buys from you. That is going to be that's your avatar. How are you selling, hunting? How do you find them? Fishing, how do they find you? And farming, where do they gather? Or where do they travel? It's basically putting your information in their path, even though you may never see them. So those are the 3 categories. And then this list of prospects, these ought to be a list of your decision makers. So then you take all of this information, and then when we go back to the written sales process, we can start plugging that information in. So let me get Alex. You usually have good answers. Tell me what you have put in each one of these 4 spaces on your written sales process.
Right. So for client attraction, I think the social promotion is probably the biggest way because it's immediate. I understood this worksheet as how do you get a product just sold? Like how do you hurry up and get it sold in a simple manner? So for me, social media would be the best way to get to a decision maker. And also to me, a decision maker is whoever holds the wallet and is going to be buying it. So if I want to, for instance, if I want an adult to buy it for a kid, then I would have a social media um, advertisement geared towards children to do the whole, hey mom, I want this, right? But that would change for somebody else, like if the parent is the hiker and not the kid, that media advertisement would be different for that. The other way is to just use the product, set it up when I'm camping myself and use it and expect somebody or hope somebody asks about what tent that is and where you can get it.
Yes. So before you go on, that goes back to the conversation we've been having since the beginning, which is, there's 3 categories of people you're talking to: the decision maker, the bill payer, and the end user. And in the case of the end user, I love your comment about the kids, because that's what Saturday morning cartoons was all about.
Right.
The kids watch the cartoons, and then the commercials were all about, go tell your mommy to buy you one of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Ask your parents before you're allowed or something like that, pretty
Right.
correct.
So yeah. And then the other thing about this worksheet is it is about getting sales as rapidly as possible, which we can never control the timing. But when we follow this logical process, we can at least control the process, and then we can accelerate the timing, because we can continually improve and figure out what's broken, and whatever's broken, we go back to the other worksheets and fix it. But the other thing about this is consistency. Yeah, absolutely. So getting a quick sale, but then being consistent about continuing to get those sales. And then if the sales drop off, what do we need to change in order to get back on track? So the next one, so now you had education.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on my own understanding of that. The way I understood it was, how do I educate the customer, the end user, that my product is viable, right? And I answered that in that context, and it goes back to using the product, whether it's at events or campgrounds or an explanation video in an advertisement. I see a lot right now that, and I was just talking to Rosie about this. TikTok really is kind of the gold standard for product advertisement right now, because you can create media showing what your product does, and there's a link directly to the store there to get that exact product. So that's what I would think for education, is get something showing the utility of my product with that direct link to buying it.
So on this one, this is about um, so doing an advertisement would be getting the attention. So that would kind of fit into the client attraction category. Once you have their attention, what are you actually saying in the advertisement? What is the language that you're using? What terms, what phrases, what are you saying to that decision maker that's going to move them along the sales process? So as an example, for me, I have 4 stages in my process. So when I get the attention of the decision maker and they are interested in what I'm doing, then they want to know, how am I going to do it? Because I may be a fake, I may be a fraud, I may not know what I'm talking about, I may not be prepared. So I have to be able to describe to them how I'm actually going to help them. So I will say something along the lines of, well, when we get started, we're going to do an assessment and I'm going to figure out where you are. We're going to get on the same page in terms of where you are. Then we're going to work on a revenue strategy. The revenue strategy is going to conclude in a written sales process, and we're going to work on that until you're actually generating revenue. So you see how I'm just describing to them how I'm going to help. So in your case, you may say, I've got your attention because you're a hiker, because you get out there on the trails, you have this big backpack, you want to reduce the amount of weight so you can travel, go different places. And the way this works is, you can go to my website, you will be able to purchase one of these things from my website, in your case. So, no, it actually, we have to go back again. So when you purchase this product, you will need to, you tell them how they're going to set it up, basically.
Right.
You tell them how they're going to use it. That's basically it. That goes into that category. How are they going to use it?
Yeah, that's essentially what I wrote, was that like how it's intended to be used and why.
Right, right. Exactly. And then the demonstration, on a video or something, that would also be very useful and valuable in the education section. So how would they use it along with the demonstration would be what you would put in that section.
All right, gotcha. For offer,
Mhm.
I the offer is the Cheaters Keister, a super durable quality piece of equipment that will last you for years, and if not, there's probably going to be a warranty on it.
But the basic here is easy. What do they going to, how many do they get at what price?
Yeah, it would just be the one
Mhm.
at an assumed $40.
Okay, so you would get, so this one is basically, they get one Cheaters Keystone for $40. That's your offer.
Right,
So we're keeping it simple. We want to keep it simple. When they ask the question, hey, this is what it looks like, $40. And they go to your website or whatever and they see this is what it is, $40. So that's the offer. And then the close is, how do they actually make the purchase?
right. So that would be like direct sales. If it's face to face, like at an event or something like that. E-store payment systems, which come with a deduction for using the payment system if you're using an online storefront or something like that, like an Etsy or whatever. CODs are acceptable if you're doing something like batch. People that make kits and things like that may want to buy a bunch of these. That's all with deliverables and how that typically works. And that's about as far as I have seen this going.
Okay.
In my view.
So, but we're are we talking credit cards in each one of these cases?
Yeah, it could be any of those direct sales. I that's general for cash to cards, to tap, to cash apps, PayPal's, Apple Pays, and all that. Anything that would be direct to me, like you see at events where people have their little square pads out or something like that, or whatever they do. And e-store payments are the same. Yeah, credit or crypto, as any whatever they accept. I was just being general with that too. And CODs are, again, however those are accepted.
Right.
Typically
Yeah,
credit.
so you want to be specific and say, we take credit cards, we take cash, we take Cash App, we take Venmo, you want to be specific about how they're going to do that. And you can also, so for me, I'll say, you can go on my website, you can use your credit card and purchase. So you want to be specific about how they're gonna pay you.
All right.
Yeah. All right, good. So,
Russ,
David,
Terrell asked a question
okay,
about, and I think you might have answered this, that education is how how they will get the product or service, or
yeah,
how the process of that, as you described for your clients, the steps that you take them through when you sign that contract. So Terrell, when you're talking about social media, and Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to be describing how you will get the social media marketing executed for them, by maybe step one is we're gathering information that of what you've already attempted in social media. We'll look at how that was or was not effective and how it needs to be adjusted, and then we'll come up with a marketing plan for social media. Is that a proper way to look at that, Russ?
that's exactly the proper way, because what the people are doing is they're shopping. And when you go shopping, you're looking at a variety of different options and you're comparing them. So this is what has made it so incredibly more challenging to do business these days, is because people can shop globally, and your language is the only weapon you have to win this competition. So how you describe your process for delivering results is going to connect with certain people. They'll say, oh, I like the way you do that. In some cases, people cannot describe what they do at all. And I heard a few people, do this I was at the Synapse conference a couple of weekends ago, and I was standing there and this guy says, so what do you do? And the individual went around talking about a bunch of things, but never really said how they do what they do. And I'm thinking, I don't think I would ever do business with this person. They don't seem to know what they're talking about. So you want to be credible in your conversation, and that's what we're doing here, is thinking in advance what you would say when someone asks you, how are you actually going to help me?
So is there a set number of steps that you need to have? Step one, gather information. Step two, do this. Step three, do this. Step four, so on and so forth.
No, because it depends on what you do. So this is also a good exercise in you figuring out, how am I actually going to make sure that this person gets results? What is your process for helping them to get what you promised? How are you going to fulfill your promise to them that you can do what you said you were going to do? So there's no set number of steps. And this is something that will evolve over time, because you'll get a customer and maybe everything won't go well. You'll want to do your best to fix it. And in the process of fixing your process, you want to document it here and say, oh, I didn't really do that well. Let me reconsider the way I'm actually doing this, so that the next person I work with, I don't make the same mistakes.
Okay. And when it comes to offer, um, I just had the question, but I think you just lost.
So
So,
okay,
I'm sorry. I just remembered.
go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. Um, when it comes to sending offer, say hypothetically speaking, I was just sending like a pitch deck or a package to someone I was willing to work with. Is it good to put the offer on in the first message, like, hey, this is what we do, this is the offer, or just saying what we do and then send the offer on the next meeting? If that makes sense.
Yes, I wouldn't even really talk about the offer until they ask. I would only talk about value. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how it helps you. This is how it solves your problem. This is how we're different than other people. Just talk about the value. And then when and if they say, how much does it cost? That's when you give them the offer.
Okay, thank you.
Now, there's going to be times when people will say, how much do you charge? And if you have a system or a process where it is dependent upon other factors, like with Cherie, you can say, this is my basic structure, but as we do the determine exactly what you need, these prices may change so that nobody can kind of lock you down into something and then into a price, and then you realize that you're losing money at that price. You want to make sure that you give some flexibility to be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm telling you this because this will help you with an initial decision, but as we move forward, this price may change, this price may go up based on certain factors. That actually gives you a lot of credibility because then they say, oh, you know your business, you understand what you're doing, and you're not trying to trick me, you're letting me know up front that this may occur. So your sincerity and being genuine will come through. So that's the offer. Only mention the offer when they ask.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. And then yeah. So let's go with you. What did you come up with yours? Did we finish? Yeah, we finished with it. What did you come up with on your sheet?
So oh, it's right here. Okay. So I came up with client attraction, how you get the decision maker. Okay, I say in person, through social media, and through relatability content, putting information in front of your, well, that was the sidebar. Uh, Education. The education is post content about marketing, building a personal brand, and improving campaigns over time and different ways to market. Documentation with it, not that one. Offer. Education. The offer is create marketing campaign that resonate with your business for 12 weeks and test, improve, and target your ideal customers for $4,990 per month with a 50% deposit of $2,449 on the 1st and the 15th.
Mhm.
And then the close, send invoice purchase on website and send contract that explains what we are agreeing to.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
What was
Wanna
the
keep-
offer? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think you're gonna answer the question.
What was your question?
As far as the offer, was that too much or was it?
No, it's not too much. You want to make sure that they understand what the parameters are. And now the other thing is when you do this, now the next step is test, 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 and improve. These are not, remember what I said in the beginning too, there are no right answers. There are the best answers for you under the circumstances. And as the circumstances change, you need to go back and revisit to make sure that you adjust. And this worksheet helps you do that. So when you go out and you present your offer to someone and it's confusing, then you can say, okay, you may ask, so what was confusing about my offer? And they say, well, I didn't understand this. I didn't understand why are you charging that? Or, this other person over there, they do it like this. Why don't you do it the same way they do it? Now you take all that information that you just heard from them and you make adjustments to your presentation. You don't make adjustments to your pricing, you just make adjustments to your presentation. Like you said earlier, everything is in the presentation. So you can then go back to your value proposition and say, this is how this helps you make money, or save time. So therefore, I'm giving you more value than the other people who you've talked to. We need to compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. And if you look at, so now you can have that kind of a conversation.
And this is where the previous worksheets come into play. Like as you go along the process, like you're kind of putting the pieces to the puzzles. Like, hey, we have the value proposition is this is the offer, this is what we do, this is how we solve and bring value. So it's kind of like constantly going back to the worksheets that's already been completed.
Exactly. You're constantly rethinking. So we want to keep it simple by using this worksheet because this is only 4 steps. But when this worksheet isn't helping you to generate revenue, you can then go back to the other ones and say, what's broken? Am I giving the right message? Am I describing the value appropriately? Am I addressing the risks and consequences? Is my message connecting and communicating effectively? You go over to the next one. Hunting, fishing, farming. Is my avatar, accurately and effectively described? And then you just go down through those. And then you
So
make the adjustment on your written sales process.
so the adjustment would be um testing and testing, and then whatever works, then you stick to that one.
Yes. Then you run that for as long as you can. You milk it until the cow is dry. And then only at that point that you're now not getting any results anymore do you go back and say, okay, that revenue stream has run its course. For whatever reason, the economy may change, technology may change, whatever you are doing isn't going to run forever. So you have to be ready to shift as the market shifts. But once you have what works, you work it until it doesn't work anymore.
Okay, I appreciate it, Dr. Russ.
Okay. So that's good. So that's a great start. That's where we really want to go with this worksheet. And you also pull, this is an integration also of the business model canvas, because on the business model canvas, you have information on the canvas that you've collected and researched and talked about that you can also incorporate into this worksheet. We want to make sure that you're taking action. And when it comes to the cold calls, we can, jump in and say, okay, if client attraction is to do a cold call, then you can say under education, what are you going to say during that call? So the education part, how do you describe your process for delivering results? That's what people want. They want to get a result. They want a solution to the problem. They want relief from the pain. And if you can tell them how you're going to do that, then you have a potential customer. You have a customer, probably have a customer at that point.
So, Dr. Russ,
Yes.
another question came about. So, say hypothetically speaking, you have cold calling, you have content creation, you have email marketing, you have SMS. Are each is each the thing that you communicate with, is it a different process or is it the same process?
The process is the same, but you might want to do a different worksheet for each process. So if you're going to do social media as your client attraction, then you're going to put different information on the social media. But again, going back to the message making worksheet, you have a master message. You want to pull from your master message so that you're not using completely different, conversations for each one of your channels. So if you say, we do TikTok videos, and you want to put that into your social media, you want to put it on your website, you want to put it on your face-to-face conversations, you want to put it on your business cards and your marketing collateral. If that's what you do to help people achieve their results, you want that to be consistent across all channels, so you don't confuse people. If you say, oh, we do Facebook and we do Facebook marketing on your website, and then on your on your marketing collateral, you say, oh, we do TikTok, and then you say we do LinkedIn. Now people are, well, what really do you do? So you want to have some consistency in your message across all channels.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Great questions. Great questions. So unless someone else wants to or share what they put on this worksheet, we can move on to the next. But I want to say this, Sherry.
Yeah, because I'm still struggling with my avatar, so I need to keep doing it until it gets till it sinks in.
Mhm.
So um, so I'll do my sheet.
Okay.
Okay. So my client attraction is through the leads that I pay for, organic leads from when I do flyers and um, uh, events. And then if they're organic, then I send them through my website because the website has a flow form and it'll come to my email. And then I can put that onto my main website, onto my uh, transportation website. And then they're in the system.
Mhm.
And then education, our value is customer service. You make sure that your vehicle is transported safely and in a timely manner, and that our drivers are screened. Um, we do with 5-star drivers, and we make sure that they have insurance that has been verified. And once we choose a driver and we all agree on the price, then we'll move forward.
Mhm.
And then the offer is based on the vehicle type.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the vehicle type and the pickup and the destination. And then the close is once we agree on the price, then they have to submit a deposit through credit card, and then the balance will be paid once the vehicle is delivered to the destination. But you have to make sure that you inspect the car and that it's in the same condition as it went on the vehicle. And if you are okay with everything, then you sign off and then you pay the driver.
Awesome.
And if you have anything happens, don't sign anything and you reach out to me and then I'll step in.
Yep. That's it. And so those are great things. You'll continue to add to them, improve them, and adjust them as you continue to work with your business. I will say that in terms of client attraction, you might want to add conferences because you've already had success with
Okay.
acquiring interest in getting the attention of a decision maker at a conference.
Okay.
So now and so that the last thing I'll say about this worksheet is that while it's very useful for you to determine your own unique customized process for acquiring customers, if and when you grow to the size where you want to bring on salespeople, this is where you start them. You tell them this is how we've been attracting clients. This is what we say to them. This is our pricing strategy. And then this is how we're going to collect payment once they've agreed to do business with us. And as a sales professional, for them to have this start, they will then be able to build upon that and then do their thing based on their skills, talents, abilities, experiences, and so forth. But this is a really good starting point for your sales team as you start to step out into that level of growth.
Thank you.
Other comments? It's logical and it's simple. Don't underestimate it. It's very powerful. All right. So we'll take a 5-minute break to 10:30. And then we'll come back, we'll get into the next worksheet, and that one will go pretty quick too. I think we'll go pretty quick too, so we'll go through that one. All right, so back at 10:30.
Hey, Dr. Russ, I know you said we'll be back at 10:30. I just thought about what you had said earlier. You remember how you said that you was making 100 videos, or
Right.
next day you'll make a 100, a total of 100 videos.
Yes.
Are you improving one thing per video, or you just making just to get comfortable on camera?
Oh, I have, let me show you, I'll show you something real quick. So I made this binder with this really cool cover page.
Okay.
And basically what I started doing was I started thinking through some of the things that I wanted to talk about on the video,
Okay.
some topics that I would like to discuss.
Okay.
And then you could see the check marks are the ones that I've already done.
Mm-hmm.
I put the dates for the dates that I actually made those videos.
Okay.
I make a list, so anytime I think of something that I want to share with small business owners in the pre-profitability stage, I put it there, and then I'll make some notes about what I actually want to talk about.
Okay. Are you looking at your body language when you deliver it?
Yes, so
Okay.
I'm looking at my positioning in the screen. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at the background. I'm looking at the lighting. I am looking and I'm also listening. I have a microphone that I use. So I'm listening to the quality, the quality of the audio. And then I'm looking at my face, my facial. I tend to be very intense when I'm talking like this. And I will get up into the camera like this. And I say, well, I have to smile more. I have to sit back a little bit. So I'm looking at all those things when I'm making the video. And I have a virtual assistant who processes them for me. So then he'll look at them and he'll give me feedback on, my presentation. And then he basically professionalizes them. He'll put in the he'll put in the captions, he'll add all the subscribe here, all that kind of stuff. And I did an intro and an outro, so he'll connect the intro and the outro, and he does all that stuff for me.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
How,
Okay.
how
Yeah.
long are your videos?
Mine are 4 to 5 minutes. I wanted them to be 1 to 2 minutes, but when I start running my mouth, I can't shut up. So every single time they keep coming out to 4 or 5 minutes, every single one of them.
And that's great. That when you start doing it longer, because YouTube long form content is a lot better, but they just getting you more comfortable on camera. But 4 minutes is great.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And I'm only dealing with one small topic, but he can also take those 4 minutes and he can clip them out so he could do a 30-second reel or short.
Absolutely.
But these
Absolutely.
4 minute ones, these are the ones I want to put on YouTube. So the 100 videos are going to are going to be on YouTube.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then clips will go out into the social media space.
Okay. Okay. Is he doing your thumbnails as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
got TubeBuddy. We have TubeBuddy, and he uses TubeBuddy. He uses Canva, and he uses he uses Acrobat, Adobe. He uses Adobe Pro,
Okay. Adobe Premiere or Adobe Pro?
Adobe Premiere, Adobe Premiere. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I just thought about that. I just want to share that with you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm doing
Okay.
right now. So are those the things that you pretty much do as well?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, it is the exact same thing.
Okay. Yeah. So that's very useful because again, so we went through some, we went, and I see everybody's coming back right now, but we went through some growing pains because I am the content and I didn't want to be the content. And I tried to figure every way to wiggle out of doing videos, and he wouldn't let me.
Yep.
So I came up with a process where I go run every morning. So at the end of my run, I would come in the house, I would get my phone, and while I was cooling down, I would walk up and down the street just to cool down, and I would record a video. And then I would put it into Google Drive, and then he would download it from Google Drive and work on it. But what ended up happening is I would be heavy breathing after the end of my run, and he couldn't process the breathing out of the audio. So we had to abandon that process. Now I'll come back from my run and I'll sit down here and I'll get all comfortable and relaxed, and then I will make the videos. And that's been a much better process.
Okay. Are you using your like the meetings that we have as well to make content?
I use this right here. I use Zoom
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying. Every
yeah.
Saturday I'm using like
Oh
for instance
no,
this
no,
recording. No,
no. Mm.
it can be a good one.
Oh well, it probably could. I don't
And
know.
and you speaking longer than 4 minutes.
Right, right,
The,
right.
earlier I mentioned something about Myron Golden. Is it
I know
Golden?
Myron
You know,
Golden. I've known
okay.
Myron for years. Yeah.
Do you mind if I send you a video of on why he's making content and how to
Oh no,
better?
not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I knew Myron. I knew Myron. I actually have a whole stack of books from Myron because I went to one of his presentations and he had this very unique way of selling books. He would take a $10 bill or a $20 bill and he would put it in a stack of 20s of 20 books. And then he would say, if you buy this stack of books,
You
you
get
might
the
have
$10.
you might have the money. You might get one of the books or two of the books that have money in it. I was like, so I have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. I have 8 books, nine. I have nine, 10. I have 10 of his books over there.
I
Of
follow him. He is superb.
Yeah, because then he said, now you want to take the books and go sell them and make the money back that you paid. So he's very, very interesting character. Yeah, he's been very good. And he blew up. He when I knew him, he wasn't as big as he is now. And now he's everywhere. You know, he connected, I think, with Russell Brunson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so he's doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so let's jump into the last one. Let's jump into the milestone map. Okay, I see you put the video. I'm gonna click the link and open it, but then I'm going to stop it.
Are you?
Okay.
No offense, but if you still think stocks, real estate.
What page is this on? The next one?
So the next one is actually on page,
131.
yep, back to the front.
Thank you.
Now, the milestone map is the visual representation of the definition of strategy, how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And in the very beginning, I encourage you to memorize this definition because it will influence your thought process in everything you do. Whenever some opportunity comes available, you can ask yourself, where is this going to take me? And in this opportunity, where do I want to be? What are the outcomes? And when you start with that, you might and in that moment go, this isn't helping me to get to where I want to be. So the answer is no. Simple as that, easy. If it requires more thought, then you can go back and go, okay, if that's where I want to be, if this is where that's going to help me to be, where am I right now? And what's going to have to happen to get me from here to there? And this simple diagram is nothing more than a line on a piece of paper. And you all are looking at the mission mapping milestones long term. Is that what you're seeing? Okay. I just want to make sure that that you're seeing what I'm seeing. It is nothing more than a line on a piece of paper with some hash marks. I love to do mission mapping on a whiteboard. You can do a milestone mapping on a whiteboard. You can do milestone mapping on a notepad. You don't have to do it using PowerPoint. There are probably applications out there where you can do milestone mapping. It's not about the piece of paper, it's about the thought process. And the thought process is, how do you get from where you are to where you want to be? So on worksheet number 1, which was the money measure, we established a revenue target. And we also established how much work it was going to take us to get there. Now, you're not there yet. So if your revenue target, which we used as an example, was 100,000 per year, and then that might require you to serve 56 customers per month at X price point. Now you have 2 measures, and you can go back here and you can say current customer base. And we use above the line and we use below the line. And the below the line is simply what supports what's above the line. I'm going to come to that. I'm going to come back to that in a quick second. So below the line, you may have $0 and 0 customers. So the question then is, how do we get from here to there? You have to have a product. You have to have sales. You have to have a team. When you say team, we could go below the line and say vendors, suppliers, employees, and you're just outlining below the line what you mean by what supports that which is above the line. Now I'm going to go back to the descriptive diagram. On the diagram, you can see the starting point. What are you doing now? Which product is closest to the dollar? The faster you can get revenue coming in, the more choice you have. What types of preparatory things do you need to do? Do you need to get more education, training? Do you need to have certifications, registrations? Do you need to purchase equipment? What things do you have to do to get ready, to prepare? The end point is, what does success look like, and what measures will tell you that you've succeeded? My measure is 600,000 micro business owners becoming purposefully, purposefully profitable, achieving intentional prosperity, 600,000. That's measurable. It also tells me that in order to get from where I am to where I want to be, I'm going to have to do some big things. And the traditional way of doing things may not work for me, but I can now sit back and think it through and say, what types of things have to happen to get me from 0 to 600,000? So it's a very good decision-making tool. And if I said, hey, you know what? I just want to just kind of hang out. I want to help a few people. I'm just going to be a coach. I probably help over the course of 10 years. Maybe I'll help, 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, but I'm not going to hit 600,000 that way. Not for sure. And Rosie actually did the math for me once. So you can do the math and you can measure. Now, you can structure your milestone map based on programs. You may say, I have 5 programs that I want to execute. And you look at those programs and say, well, this one is really complicated. This one is really easy. So I'm going to craft and do this one, and I'm going to perfect it, and I'm going to get feedback on it. And then I'm going to move to program number 2. I'm going to incorporate program number 3. I'm going to add program number 4. And then when I get to program number 5, I'm going to have my complete business set up. Everything that I want to do, I'm going to be doing it. You might set it up in phases and say, in phase 1, I'm going to do this. In phase 2, in phase 3, in phase 4. You can set it up by phases. Critical actions is another one, and you can do sprints. So I can say, this is my 30-day map. This is my 60-day map. This is my 90-day map. You can do them all. You can have a programs map. You can have a phase map. You could have a critical action map, and you can have a sprint map. There's no limit to how you can use this simple line on a piece of paper. It's only limited by your imagination and by what it is that you need to think through. And to keep it simple, all you're trying to do is say, where am I and where do I want to be? And how do I get there? You're making your own map. The other thing that's really good about doing the work for this milestone map is it can be incredibly overwhelming for me to sit back and think how I'm going to help 600,000 people become purposefully profitable. And it's daunting, and it can create all kinds of anxieties. So I can break down a map and break it down and say, in the first year, I'm going to help 100. In the second year, I'm going to help 1,000. In the third year, I want to get to 5,000. In the fourth year, I want to get to 100,000. And then now once I get to the point where I can help 100,000, now I know that I can get to 600,000. So instead of me focusing on the 600,000, I just focus on the 100 that I want to get to in the first year, because that's going to allow me to do some things that will then build upon. So at the second year, I can get to 500 or 1,000. And then I build upon those things, and I use the money that I've made to accelerate my ability to grow. So it helps you to frame and shape how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. And that's what I'm talking about below the line where it says supporting actions. You can look at what has to happen to get from the start to the finish. But on those days when you feel like you're procrastinating, you say, look, let me see what I can do just to get from point 1 to point 2. Just to get from here to there. Let me do something, because this is all about progression. It's all about moving forward and being able to measure the results of the actions that you are taking. It can be messy. this can get very, very messy. But as I mentioned, so here's the example of a long-term map. Then you can have a 90-day, here's an example just of a 90-day map, just the structure of it. Any questions about how this might be used? Thoughts, comments? Alex?
So when we're doing this, sorry. So when we're doing this milestone map,
Mhm.
are we going to come to a point where we take the assessment from Sistro that we got a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago? Is this where we start plugging that in to try to figure out how to knock off some of the red?
That's down.
All right, that's all I had. Thanks.
Yes. Yes, it gives you a good, the assessment is specifically to give you a good starting point. 100%.
Thanks, boss.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
Alice just brought up about the assessment, and I just thought about when you mentioned that you wanted to sell to college and into institutions and things of that nature.
Yes.
How do you go about finding who exactly you need to speak with? Do you just call around asking like, "Hey, I'm looking to do this. Who do I need to speak to?" Or it's like, "I know who I need to speak to. Can you put me in contact with them or something like that?"
Well, I start with the communities. And I will say, so when I wanted to, so initially I was using the assessment with my clients. So as I had my clients, I would, give them the assessment. Um, we became part of the Action Zone Tampa. So now I was given the assessment within the framework of Action Zone Tampa. Then as I continued to, to use it, I was improving the quality and the ability of the assessment as we went along. Because Rosie remembers when it was on a piece of paper, and I handed out a piece of paper to everybody, and they made check marks on the piece of paper. And then I showed up one year and I had it automated, and we could go online. And then I came back later, and it was incredibly much better automated. So as it's being executed, it's automating. When it came to a point where I thought, you know what, there are bigger audiences than individuals. Let's start looking at institutions. And the obvious institutions that came up were institutions that were similar to Action Zone. So I said, okay, what other kind of institutions are out there? So there's incubators, there's accelerators, there's entrepreneurial support organizations, there's all of these, and then, then there's colleges and there's, colleges and universities. So then we just started looking at a list of potentials. And then as we got into that list of potentials, we asked ourselves, who is the decision maker in those universities, in those locations? And that's how we drilled down to. And as I said before, that became a business to business model for us. But no matter if you're dealing business to consumer or business to business or business to government, you're always dealing with a person who's going to make that decision to say yes or no. So that's when we start to, say, okay, at HCC, who is the person at HCC? At University of Tampa, who is that person? At University of South Florida, at St. Leo, at St. Pete College, who are those people? In the Strive program. So HCC has the Strive program. Who in the Strive program would be? And I went over to the Strive program, and I attended one of their sessions over there. And then I found out who the decision makers were over there. And I had conversations with them. Is this a problem? Oh man, we just can't seem to get people to figure out where they need. Oh, I have something for you. Let me show you. Let me give you a chance to take my assessment and tell me what you think. Would this be helpful?
So the more imaginative you can use your mind, the more different ways in doing things will come about.
Yes, exactly. And the reason why this is the way it is, the reason why we have the business model canvas, the reason why we have the mission mapping process is because it helps you remove the guesswork, and it allows you to retain the creativity. The trial and error is what becomes frustrating for business owners, especially at the very early stage when you don't really know a whole lot about what you're doing. So when you can use a business model canvas and you can identify the components that are critical to you being able to succeed and grow your company, that reduces the anxiety and it reduces the amount of trial and error you have to go through as you grow your company. So use these. The reason why we're giving you these is to use them. The other thing is what we're giving you is, Rosie has tremendous experience in business, and she's got some lessons sharing with you from that experience. So we're giving you the tool, but we're also giving you some insights on how you can apply the tool. And if you had to, hang a picture in your house, I could give you a hammer. I could give you a wrench. I could give you a shoe. There's a bunch of ways you could get that nail in the wall so you can hang that picture, but you want to choose the best one. I have hammered nails in the wall with shoes before. It works. But a hammer is a little bit more efficiently. So we're giving you some hammers. You can keep the shoes on your feet where they're designed to be. So
I
this is
appreciate it, Dr. Russ.
Yeah. So this is a tool. It's a tool powered by your creativity and so use it appropriately and connect with us if you have any issues or challenges with it. I actually did one of these on the written sales process. I just put the 4 steps from the written sales process on the worksheet, and then below the line, I put the information um, or the activities that needed to happen in each one of those sections. So you can use it for anything. And there were folks who have come through the cohort and in earlier cohorts, and they said, you know what? Yeah, I used it for business, but I sat down with my wife and we talked about our financial situation and how are we going to get from where we are to where we want to be financially. When my wife wanted to do renovations on the house, we used a milestone map not only to determine what types of things she wanted to get done, but how much it was going to cost. And then when she would have the people come over to so she could describe to them what she wanted to do around the house, she could pull out the milestone map and say, hey, these are the things that we want to get done. We want to get the kitchen done. We need to get the floors done. We need to get the bathrooms done. We need to get the lanai done and so forth. And it was mapped out. And then we could prioritize and say, well, based upon how much money it's going to cost and what is most disrepair, let's do this one first, and then let's do this one, and do this one, and do this one, and do this one. So the other part of this map is that you can prioritize. Once you've mapped it out, you can say, you know what? Oh man, you know what? I need to do the team before I do sales. I need to build a team because once I build a team, then I'll be able to accelerate my sales. So let me move team ahead of sales. And one other thing you can do is when you see the big picture laid out like this, you can then say, I can work on 2 or 3 of these things at the same time. You don't have to, oh, I can't do this one until I do that one. If an opportunity comes available and you meet someone who can do sales really well, then you accelerate and you go, okay, let me get them on board. Let me get them working on these things. And then I can catch up on some of these other things as we move along. It's just a very powerful, but it's imagination, as you say, it's imagination. But it's visual. And that's the big, when you're trying to explain to someone using words what you want to do and how you plan to get to your destination, having a visual like this is incredibly helpful because they can see where you want to go. You can tell them and show them where you are. You can demonstrate to them your what you understand about what it's going to take to get there, and then they can see the gaps and they can see where you're missing something. They can see where your approach is out of sequence. And it's so much easier to have those conversations when you have a visual. And this is a very powerful visual. All right. So I'm not going to have you do an exercise now. I'd rather have you play with it. Take it home, play with it, put some things in there, and then come back and we can have a conversation about it at a later time. Or this would be a great conversation for the Wednesday, to talk about, how this worked. So another break until 11, 4-minute break until 11, and then the we'll jump into the customer. What are we doing today? What did I say you were doing?
Customer relationships and
Yeah, customer
channels.
relationship.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to give you until 5 after 11 because I want you to really have your head clear, all bio functions taken care of, because this is going to be a little bit of a mind-blowing thing for you, based on experience about how you're looking at the customer relationships and then channels. So come back at 11:05, ready to roll.
All right.
11:05. So before we start talking about customer relationships, I want to kind of get a poll from everyone here. And I know several people wrote to me that they're not going to be here today, and we had another one or two drop off, which is typical of entrepreneurs who have life and work and sometimes even school on top of that. So here's the question I want to ask. Do you have a clear understanding of your customer avatars?
I believe I do, based on the feedback and like activity that I'm receiving over here.
Mhm.
Although some of it is changing based on new information, but and then I've got to make efforts to reach out to them and, verify, the hypothesis and all that.
Right, of course.
But generally speaking, it seems like it feels like I've got it dialed in a little bit.
Okay, that's good. Terrell?
I feel like I'm getting more clear, or I'm gaining a more understanding of the avatar, that our avatars I'm capable of serving. So I believe I'm getting clear by the day.
That's good. That's good. Alex? I think that was 8 words, 9 words at 25 cents a word.
You're correct. Uh, I was
Just
literally
throw them down the hallway, son. Just throw them down the hallway. I'll catch them.
yeah. What was the question? I apologize.
Are you clear on your customer avatars?
I think for the most part I am. Yeah, I feel like more will come into view as this progresses. I don't think I see all of them. Um, and hopefully in time that will make itself clear.
That's a really interesting observation, because and I think Russ started talking about this when he first started Sistro, when he was working on helping entrepreneurs, individuals become purposefully profitable. That was his avatar. But then he started realizing that the educational institutions was another avatar, because he could serve more individuals in that setting or equip the new customer, the educational institutions, with what they needed to educate entrepreneurs or students in their school. So yeah, you will evolve over the development of your business. And if I can throw back into the mission mapping for just a second, and show you again how this is all interconnected. When you are looking at your mission map and you see who those customers are, you might add to them and you might move some of them to a different time when you'll start developing them based on opportunities that present themselves now closest to the dollar, and others that you might have to develop later on in your business, but you want to put them on your map because you want to remember that you identified this potential avatar as a customer in your business. You had something to add to that, Russ?
Yeah, I also wanted to say that as I began to look at the different opportunities and approach people with my assessment, I had a certain way I thought that the assessment was most valuable and was to be used. And with some of these conversations, they gave me perspectives on how my assessment could serve their purposes in a way that was different than what I thought. As an example, I wanted the business readiness assessment to be something that an individual would use to determine where they were and to be able to take action by addressing the questions and move forward. Well, when I went over to HCC, they said this would be great as a mentoring tool because the mentors and the mentees don't have any idea what to talk about when they get together, and they just kind of, flounder around until they figure some common ground. Well, the assessment gave them instant common ground because the mentees were like, oh, they take the assessment. This is where I need to put the work in. And they could go to the mentor and say, this is where I need to put the work in. And the mentor could say, all right, let's get started. Let's work on that. And so it was very effective in that. It was a different perspective. So I think you may see the same things where as you present, people will come to you and say, oh, this would be great, for this too. I could use it for this. And then you add that to your list of problems that you solve and services that you provide.
Eureka, I don't know if you're still out there. Are you clear on your customer avatars? Okay, so Eureka's not still there. She'll probably watch the video later. The reason understanding, and we said this at the first and second two classes, knowing the pain point or pain points that you solve and the customers who have that problem and who are willing and able to purchase that from you, your customer avatars, is really the basis for everything that moves forward from there. You understand how you're going to reach them. You're going to understand specifically what types of products and services appeal to them. You're going to understand how they're going to buy from you and how you will distribute your product or service to them, how you will get it to them. All of those are based on your customer avatar. And we said that at the beginning, that those first sections on the left side of your business model canvas really drive all of the are driven by all of the activity on the right side of your canvas, your key partners, your key suppliers, your collaborators, the cost of goods that you need to purchase to provide your product or service. All of that is driven to the customer avatars you have, and they could be different, which is why we talked about having a color-coded stickies on your business model canvas to kind of relate each of these 9 boxes, the information in these 9 boxes, to a specific customer avatar. Anytime you have doubt about your customer avatar, how do you think you can confirm that that particular person or business is actually a potential customer? How do you think you can validate that?
By talking to them.
Bingo. Because it all goes back to having conversations. If you had conversations and you wrote down things, and then when you went back to your office and you started putting it in a way that you could see it on your business model or even in your notebook about your business. I know a lot of people have like a journal-like thing for their business planning. I have a couple different ones that I use for all the different ideas that are in my head. But sometimes it gets lost in translation. The moment that you wrote it down, it was crystal clear to you. And then when you went to implement it on your business model or in your journal or whatever little notes you take to gauge your progress or to keep you on track, it got lost somewhere. But the simple answer is you go back and talk to more people. That never will fail you. It will help you refine who that avatar is, whether or not the hypothesis you thought in your mind, you said, well, I already validated that. So that's good. I know that they make between $35,000 and $55,000 a year. But if you're finding that you're marketing to those people and they're not biting, then you got to figure out, is it that piece? Is it the income piece that I didn't get right? Or is it where they live? Or, all of those things that you know about your avatar. Going back to the earlier chapters in the book, the demographics, which I think Russ talked about last week, where they live, how much money they make, what their educational status is or is not. I mean, all of these things, their gender, their familial status, kind of car they drive for some businesses. All of those pieces may not change much, but may need to be adjusted moving forward as you get more knowledge about your products and services and the people that you think have this problem. So never be afraid to go back to the beginning sections of this manual and say, I really need to validate this again, or review what I thought I knew before. Why did I think I know that? And then work on validating that hypothesis all over again. Because the worst thing you can do, or among the worst, it's not the worst thing you could do. That was really extra. One of the worst things that you can do is to continue building a business, spending time and money on this project, based on false knowledge, things you think you know, things you thought you identified and validated, but you're finding you're walking into a wall and you're not going anywhere. So go back to the beginning of the business model, those the value proposition and the customer segments, and identify what that really was. And even if you start all over, there's no harm in that. It saves you time and money moving forward to do that. So I wanted to just mention that. I'm glad that you seem clear right now on your customer avatars, because that helps you in every other aspect of your business, including the customer relationships. Customer relationships is actually that little box between value proposition and customer segments on your business model canvas. And it's really interesting about relationships. I like to shop online. I don't have much patience for going into a store and having a salesperson try to tell me all the features and benefits of a product that I want to buy. I want to do that research myself. I do. Russ mentioned it earlier. People have a lot more access to knowledge about what they're shopping for. So you have to be very concise and very descriptive about what your product or service delivers so that they can say, as he said, oh, this is why I should buy this. So Terrell, you said you had kind of an idea of your customer avatar, you're pretty on point, still on point in the right direction. What type of relationships do you think your customers want to have with you? How do they want to communicate with you? How do they want to buy from you? Are you their best bud and they call you up and say, hey, Terrell, I got a problem. I need to get this on social media like next week. How do they want to deal with you?
How will I be able to, I'm sorry for the background noise. How will I be able to recognize that or identify that?
Because they'll tell you, or
Oh.
they won't buy from you.
Understood.
Let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase this another way. What kind of a relationship are you hoping you will have with your customers? How will you be working with them? How will you be attracting them to purchase initially and repeatedly, and then maybe increasing their ticket item, their invoice every month? How do you see that happening?
To answer your question, I believe relatability, topics on marketing and how it can be improved and how it's created, well, not created, but like the purpose of it.
So they want to know they want to know your process. They want to
Yes.
understand your process when they hire you.
Yes.
I like the way you answered that. Are you saying that that's what you want them to know?
Yes.
I told you this was going to be a topic, right?
Mhm.
Alex, I'm going to come back to you, Terrell.
Okay.
Alex, what kind of a relationship do you think your customers are going to want to have with you?
Just purchase and go along their business.
For the most part, is that now you said you had identified, I think you said 3 different avatars.
At least, right.
Are all of them gonna just be, I want to just buy from you and not hear from you again?
I assume that as I'm not offering, one of the products is not a service. I'm not offering to teach. That would be in an advertisement. That's not something that I'm looking to make a profit off of. So yeah, the end goal for me of that relationship would just be, here's the product. Any issues you have with the product, that we can have that conversation via warranty or something like that. But I don't see any further than, you give me the cash, I give you the item. Next.
Okay, and that applies to all 3 of your avatars that you've identified.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
I
Matthew,
think.
that's okay. We append all of our conversations with I think, because right now you're still testing all of this stuff. And that's okay, absolutely. Matthew, you have a product that you are selling to organizations on a wholesale basis to then distribute to other people. So I'm very specifically asking about that group of the actual purchasers of your product, okay? The people that are buying it from you, whatever, regardless of what they do with it at the other end. What do you think? What is your idea of how that customer relationship will go from your perspective?
They want a warm person that will hold their hand when they need it. That's pretty much where it's at. There is a bit where it's transactional. I know exactly what I need, how much, and the exact dollar amounts and everything that we got to hit. Others, it is just more of that relationship type thing. Like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, and I need somebody that I feel is like helping me deal with this problem. That kind of thing. So there is a bit of that kind of persona that I've got to develop over here on the remedy guard side of being that like protector kind of thing, versus just, yeah, I'm selling lock boxes.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. So the interesting thing about customer relationships is that you, as the purveyor of your business, have very little control over what the customer wants. If you've identified an avatar that has the problem that your solution solves, then you are at the will and whim of the customers on what type of relationship they want to have. And in the manual, we talk about a number of different types of relationships. Alex and Matthew both have some customers, Alex more predominantly, that are just transactional. They just want to go in and buy it and be done. They don't even want to talk to a salesperson. Places like Amazon and QVC and HSN, you go online, you place an order. The kiosks in the airport, or the stores that are in airports, are very transactional, mostly. Sometimes those stores in the airport actually rely on a different type of relationship, a long-term relationship, because they're familiar with the brand. They know they bought it at an airport store. Some of these business models for businesses are only in traveling locations like airports and train stations, because that's their business model is based on a mobile customer. They're always traveling or traveling frequently enough that they can support that business. But if they only want a transactional relationship, then you have to decide if that's what you're able to provide and what you want to provide. If they want a more long-term relationship, that's something where they're going to always need that product. The first one that comes to mind right now is Chewy. They don't want people just to go to the Chewy website for their pet supplies one time. They want to be able to just get an auto ship of their dog treats or their flea medicine, on a regular basis. And they want to maintain, the customer wants to know that Chewy is always going to be there with the same product, the same quality, a same or similar price, because we all understand that price fluctuates at times, but that by and large, their customers are looking for a long-term relationship with a provider of their pet goods. Does that mean that there's a percentage of their customer base that's just popping in and out for the discount for a first-time buyer and going someplace else? Of course not. It means that that's part of them too, but their loyal customer base wants, and if you think, you're all familiar with Chewy? Have you seen the ads online and on TV? Chewy is developing that relationship, actively developing that relationship with their marketing, so that they don't want the customers to go anyplace else. That's how they're increasing their market share, by being a long-term provider. Because let's face it, next to our kids, our pets are the things we love the most, right? And we want dependable quality goods for our pets. So they prey on that in their marketing to keep you coming back. Another type of relationship a customer might want is personal assistance. That's where they have some human interaction, but maybe not dedicated, which is a different type of personal assistance. Personal assistance is like you can get on the website for Progressive or Geico Insurance, and you can actually order your insurance all by yourself, but they have chat people or customer service agents available at the click of a button that can give you a level of service to answer any specific questions you have. Matthew, I see that as a possibility for your for Remedy Guard, because you may have an e-commerce store and they can see everything that you describe about your product, but they may still have a couple of questions. So you might have an avatar that is ready, willing, and able to buy, and they've got the right demographic to distribute those to, and they know that what you have is what they need, but they might still want a little bit of personal assistance just to understand more fully what they're getting and how your business runs. So they could go from being transactional to personal assistance, and none of these types of relationships are mutually exclusive, not even for the same avatar, because sometimes, as you personally know, sometimes you just need a little bit of extra something. Sometimes you just want to pop in and buy it. Sometimes you need to ask questions. So that's kind of the distinction in personal assistance is they might always want some personal assistance, but they might also just be a transactional that needs that on occasion. The point is you need to be aware of this so that you have an avenue to address that. The worst thing in the world, and I just ran into this recently, was I tried to buy something online and there was no chat box that I couldn't speak to a customer service representative right then and there. In fact, the telephone hours for this business were so limited that it was 3 or 4 days before I was actually able to go back to it and reach them in the time that they had customer service phone hours.
Yeah, so I dealt with a similar thing yesterday. Somebody was trying to get some numbers together to write for a grant, and my website was broken. I had updated some product names, and so they didn't fall into the right collection, so the auto discount wasn't applying. So they sent me an email. It's like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Corrected stuff and sent them, updated things and whatnot. And they greatly appreciated that. And then they came back and they're like, okay, cool. Well, thanks for the numbers. And I'm working with a couple other counties. Can I send them your info? And I'm like, cool, yeah. And here's my catalog.
Yep. And you may never, they may just order online and you may never hear from them again. Or you may have that one-off where they need a little bit of personal assistance. Online insurance carriers, home improvement stores. Oh my gosh, I know some of the people at Home Depot on a first name basis in a couple of departments. I'm ashamed to say that, but by and large, my relationship with Home Depot is transactional. I know what I want, I go in and I get it. But on occasion, I need somebody to tell me exactly what is it I need to fix this challenge. And more often than not, I get somebody that's knowledgeable, and that just feeds me as a customer to the next time I go in. If I have a question, then I feel more comfortable asking, because I know in the past when I've had the need for more information, they had somebody knowledgeable there to give it to me. Now, Eureka has a business that wants more dedicated personal service, and that stands to reason. Mobile dentistry, all of the health services, most financial services want dedicated personal assistance. Banks, I don't know, maybe somebody can tell me, do banks still have personal representatives? Used to be a long time ago, if you went into a bank, you'd have one person that was your banker. I could go in and see Sue Jones anytime I wanted to, because she opened my account. If I have a problem, I go to her to my account. And so I always know that there's somebody. Sue might send me to somebody else if I decide I need a different bank product, like if they're selling insurance or investments or a mortgage versus a checking or a savings account. But I have a dedicated person that I can contact. How many of you have an insurance agent in your pocket? I knew Russ was going to raise his hand. What are the 5 or 6, Russ?
Health advisor, wealth advisor, accountant, attorney, banker, and insurance. there are still, especially at the credit unions, there are still personal bankers that you can go in and have a conversation with. My Chase tried to do it, but because of the way they're structured, people get promoted and they move on. In the credit union, they tend to stay around a little bit longer.
So does anybody besides Eureka think that you will have a dedicated personal assistance relationship, that you have customers that request that type of relationship with you? Other than Eureka, I didn't think anybody else did. Not that you won't in the future, but today. Self-service. Again, online banking, online retail, online insurance. There's a lot of places where you never have to speak to a human. And you can do everything, even your groceries now, you can order online and have just self-service, and somebody will just deliver it to your doorstep for you, somebody or a shipping company. Automated services, these go hand in hand with those ones that are self-service as well as others. And that's where you have a subscription model and they purchase the subscription and it just rinse and repeat. Your renewals for your insurance will auto renew. Your renewals for even the subscriptions that you purchase for medicines or pet foods or beauty products, those are just automatically happen and you don't really have to think much about those customers. Doesn't mean you don't need to still cater to them, but that's an automatic, their relationship as an automatic renewal of their purchases makes for a lighter load for you on the relationship side, on the person-to-person time suck time that you have to spend with them. But that doesn't mean that you don't, God bless you, doesn't mean that you don't, God bless you again, you get one more and then you're done. That doesn't mean that you don't have to still pay attention to them, because they could be pulled away to another vendor who offers more touchy-feely or more standoffish, whichever it is that they want. Another type of relationship, which kind of goes hand in hand with some of these others, is called communities. And since Facebook took over, and TikTok and Instagram and Etsy and you name it, communities have been a big way to that customers like to establish a relationship with you and their business. They want to be in a little online or on-site community of people who use your product and services, because they know those are their people. If they're using the same products and services you are, then they have already something in common with these people, and they can help each other out. Eureka, for mobile dentistry even, it's a very unique thing for people to want to who opt not to go to a dental office and go to a mobile facility. Those people know who each other are, right? They find each other. Yeah, they make a recommendation. Do you know a good dentist in the area? Well, I did go to this guy down on Main Street, but you know what? This new service came out with mobile dentistry, and let me tell you, I just couldn't believe I've been going to the dentist office all this time. The convenience, the care, the quality of the staff, whatever. Creating communities either online or on site is a great way to build your market share, but it's also a way to connect with your customers in ways that you can't do in some of the other relationships. Because when you have a community like a Facebook or a loyalty program where people are getting emails about specials and new products, you can actually start communicating with your customers more closely and getting more feedback on the products and services you're offering. Also, how you might expand those products and services. Any idea, any thoughts on the communities piece?
Yeah, I've been brainstorming creating this thing called the Remedy Guard Alliance, and it's just going to be like it's going to be like a Facebook group and a LinkedIn group, but where, like, outreach, prevention, treatment folks can, well, and the other interested parties parent, it doesn't matter. It's free to join, get in, get part of the conversation kind of thing, and then grow it out from there.
That is an incredibly valuable marketing tool. Because as those people that are in the market or understand the need for a remedy guard and are using it and distributing those products themselves, they will bring more people in to your community. Hey, it's not just that you can just buy this thing, but then there's this website that we can all talk about, and we can introduce new ideas for new products, or innovative ways that we've used something that we got from this company, or just talk about the industry as a whole. And introduce new people to it. It's a really valuable tool. And it's not, like I said, none of these are mutually exclusive, but hand in hand with even transactional relationships is very valuable, because then you have a place where you can market your products and services, so that even those transactional people who aren't really coming to your site or visiting your store on a regular basis, or understand who you are more than just the one time they purchased your service, then with this, in this community, then they can be fed more information, more value, more understanding of what their problems are and how you can solve them.
And there's
Did you-
social proof.
Thing that-
And there's
Good.
social proof to that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely social proof. And I think I mentioned this before, that you can you have two ways really in terms of community. You can build a community, or you can join a community or communities. And you can, initially it takes a while to build a community. So you can join a community, and then people who are part of that community will then join your community as you move forward. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like, you're not taking from another community to build your community. People can be in more than one community at a time. So they'll just supplement, what they're getting in the other community with what they're getting from your community. So joining or building, or joining and building.
Good point. Alex talked about earlier doing YouTube videos or TikTok videos about demonstrating how the Cheater's Keystone works. Co-creation is a kind of relationship that some customers prefer, and that's because they get to be in the thick of things, right? YouTube became famous because people created content on their platform. They created YouTube. YouTube couldn't have done it by itself to the degree that they have grown. They were reliant on other users to create YouTube. YouTube had a milestone map that said, we want to have these topics and these interests covered. And then they invited people just to come in and do it. And they allowed the customers, if you will, the viewers of YouTube, to create what YouTube is. I don't know of very many other businesses that could create a community with the community members actually building it with them. If you have ideas, let me know. But Etsy, YouTube, even eBay, all of these where the major components in the business are other people, not the actual business itself. Can you create something like that with what you have? Some businesses are more conducive to that than others. And perhaps if you don't have that, and this is the next important point, perhaps if you don't have a community that they can join, or where they can help co-create your business, your content, the things that draw people to you, then perhaps they're not your avatar. We had someone in the program several years ago that developed a software. He's a Microsoft genius and a coding genius. And he developed a software that at the time was kind of a user guide, or a troubleshooting platform software, where virtually any question someone could have about how to use one of the Microsoft products, or if they had a challenge with one of the Microsoft products, that it was so complex that somebody could just search and get the information they needed immediately, and then could solve their problem. And I think he spent 5 or 6 years just developing the platform and all of the content in it. And what he found when he first started test launching it is that while there were a lot of people that really loved the idea that they could just go in by themselves, just by themselves, type in a term like you can on Google and get very clear, workable, actionable instructions on fixing their problem. But there was a large group of people that came to his site that then needed somebody they could talk to say, I did this, but it still didn't quite do what I needed it to do. How, do I ask another question of this? Do I put in there, what keyword do I need to use? How do I find the answer to this question? And the business owner was not interested in talking to people. He was not interested in being a one-on-one mentor to the people who used his product. And he was flummoxed as to how he was going to grow his business because the majority of people that were coming to his site wanted self-serve, not just self-service, but personal service as well when they ran into a challenge. And let's face it, when we're talking about technology, there's a lot of challenge. And so we often need somebody else to hold our hand. At first, he thought his business was done. He's going to have to find a different way to use this software until it finally occurred to him in talking to somebody at a networking meeting about this, that he just needed somebody that he could license that software to, that was interested in providing that hand-holding, that was interested in being that personal assistant to the customers that came to use that product, that were willing to talk to them one-on-one, sort of like the Geek Squad people do, come right out to your house and take care of things. He wasn't interested in that, but he did figure out that he could license what he had to another business that would take his product and expand the services available to it to include that personal and dedicated personal service. People actually could buy a membership to that other company that would allow them so many hours of individual consultation on their software needs, software challenges. So if you find that what you think is one of your ideal money-making customers, avatars, is interested in a relationship that you are unable or unwilling to provide, because honestly, he could have provided that personal touch, but he was not willing to. That's not what he wanted his business to be. And you have to build a business that you love or you're not going to stop working on it, right? So if you're hating what you have to do, and I wish Cherie was here, because that piece about the cold calling and hating the cold calling, well, if you can't get past that, then you got to figure out what else you have to do to be able to drive your market, to increase your market and get customers. So think about the types of relationships that you think your customers want to have. And trust me, this is something you need to validate with your avatars. It's another piece of, another sticky on the business model, that color for each avatar, because each one of your avatars, now, Alex, you had 3. You had the camper. Tell me the 3 you had again.
Campers, classes, possible contracts like tip makers, military, things like that.
Oh, but what was the specific avatars that we talked about yesterday and you talked about today? The families that are going camping, the individual campers, and the
Classes
survivalists.
like Boy Scouts, things like this. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if they want, let me start over again because I totally derailed here for a second. What's important to remember is that you don't get to pick the relationship. It's not up to you. It's up to your customer avatar. You can't, just like Russ said a couple weeks ago, you can't convince somebody they have the problem you have the solution for. You can't convince them to have the kind of relationship with your business that you want them to have. You have, and neither can they convince you to provide a level of service or products that you don't want to sell or provide. So from the very beginning, when you're looking at your avatar and all of the different demographic pieces to that, now you're also adding what kind of relationship do each of these avatars want to have with you? And are you prepared to provide the level of service that particular relationship requires? Questions? Terrell's just writing furiously. And it's all in your book. It's all in page 59 to 62. So you've got all that content there. It tells you about the relationships. But now that you've kind of thrown out when I asked you what kind of relationship did you think your customers want to have, now it's important for you to identify that what you think they want is what they want. You will crush yourself trying to provide services, as this gentleman from a couple of years ago was considering. It will crush you to try to relearn what you're doing so that you can provide a level of service to a certain segment of your customers that you're not interested, maybe not even qualified to provide. Russ always says, if the ramp to knowledge, if the ramp to anything is too long and too expensive, it's not worth doing. Well, in his case, the ramp to being a cordial customer service rep on tech issues was beyond what this man could do or was interested in doing. And it would have taken, between us, it would have taken hours and hours of therapy for him to get to the point where he could actually have a conversation with somebody with a tech problem who really only needed to plug it in and not, we've seen all the memes about the IT support people. And if they just told him to plug it in, it would work. So recognize what your avatars want in their relationship and determine how you're going to provide that for them, if you are going to provide that to them. Yeah. Because it's okay to not have all of the customers. You want the customers that are wanting what you have in the way that you want to deliver it, unless you want to change the way you structure your business, and that's fine too. But be aware of those different relationship types, because you're never going to sell a hands-on 30-hour a month personal service to somebody who only wants to buy a product and use it and not be bothered.
Just want to offer this. I had a very interesting journey in this regard, in that I didn't want to do personal, customer service. I didn't want to do coaching. I didn't want to do consulting. I didn't want to have one-on-one conversations, with people every day, trying to help them understand how to, do business. And I did not want that. And I knew from day one that I was going to have to automate. So I tried to skip that step and go straight to automating. But I realized that I couldn't skip that step. But what I did is I said, okay, I know I have to do this to grow the company, but I have a off ramp, so I can work myself out of a job. So if you're going to find yourself where the customer relationship demands that your business demands that you have a certain type of customer relationship, maybe you look at it in that way and say, okay, I need to do this in the short term, but in the long term, I want to work my way out of that customer relationship situation.
You said you told me that you talked about Clarence Birdseye last week.
I did.
I really was sad to miss that, folks. That's one of my.
I felt like I was stealing Rosie's thunder.
The Clarence Birdseye story, it just resonates on so many different levels. But when you talk about an off ramp, his solution to his business crushing problem was that people didn't have freezers. So he bought them all freezers if they bought his food. Birdseye is not still buying people freezers. As technology, he had an off ramp, even if he didn't plan for it in the immediate future. But as technology in that time became more common for people to have a freezer, then he was able to close up I'm going to give you a free freezer if you buy my green beans, my frozen green beans. So it's excellent point, Russ, excellent point. And so maybe you won't know when the off ramp is. Again, that's a decision you make when you're building your business. When you run into things that people want that you're like, sorry, that's not what I signed up for, then you have to decide, is it you get rid of that customer avatar, that revenue stream, or as Russ said, you do it for a while so that you can build the business and then you can stop offering that service. Any questions about relationships as it relates to your specific place in business right now? Terrell.
Hey, Rosie, I do have one question. You said the page that that this was on, but I don't think I caught it. Do you mind
Um,
restating it?
Yep, it's under the customer relationships that starts on page 59.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want you to take a few minutes and on page 62, list a couple of your customer avatars. And I don't know if it was this class or another class I had where somebody had actually named their, oh no, it was at the business model pitch for cohort 15. Somebody actually named their, it was great idea, named his customer avatars. You know, Paul was a 32-year-old multiracial guy that had a high-tech job in healthcare, and he makes $150,000 and lives in downtown Tampa zip codes. So Paul, every time he talks about Paul, he thinks that Paul is now all of those people. So when I ask you to put your avatar demographics in this exercise on page 62, if you want to name your avatar, or if you've had some way to code your avatar, Matthew, your code for avatar number 1 could be organization healthcare. Avatar number 2 could be organization philanthropist, whatever. You get the idea. Identify your avatars in ways that you know who they are up here, so that when you start working on different pieces of the business puzzle related to that avatar, you can identify and keep separated the different avatars that you have. So for five minutes to 11:57, fill out the little chart on page 62, your avatar and the customer relationship that you believe they want, not necessarily the one you want to provide. And then if you discovered in your avatar discovery process, if you learned that they want a relationship that maybe you're not prepared today to provide, and how you might service them some other way. Does that mean you refer them to another piece? You license what you have? What does that mean? So now I've eked out another minute talking about it. So 11:58, come back at 12 o'clock, take 2 minutes after that. So you got 8 minutes to do the process, do the exercise, and then take a break, because then we're going to talk about channels for the last hour. 12 o'clock. Russ, could you list the advisors in the chat, please? Terrell asked, and I think that it's good for all of them to have them. And I think
All right.
in the future, I'll put a page of that information in the manual so that we don't have to remember that. On your business model canvas, customer relationships and customer channels are sandwiched between your value proposition and your customer segments. And it's really these two pieces that we're talking about today, channels or relationships and channels. They are the first time you're really starting to look over to the left side of your business model at your key resources, key partners, and key activities. These are your action-oriented boxes, the first two that you've really encountered, because they really relate to how you're delivering the value to your customers. And that is something you can't do by yourself. Russ's business relies on his website and the automation that's there to at least get them started, as well as content and other information that helps them in their business development process. So remember that these two, customer relationships and customer activity and customer channels, are the two pieces where you're going to start looking at what do you need in your business to be able to establish that customer relationship and to maintain it. And then in channels that we're talking about now, what do you need to facilitate these channels? And channels is, in my mind, is one of the most complex boxes on the business model canvas, because it doesn't relate to just one facet of your business. Channels is how you market to your customers or how you acquire customers. Channels is how you facilitate the sale to your customer. It's how you distribute the product or get the product or service to your customer so that they now have it to use or to benefit from. And it's channels is how you deliver the post-sale service, if that's something that you provide to your customers. So there are channels for each one of those pieces. And in the manual, we go over all of them and we're going to touch on them today. But I just want you to know, as we've said before, first of all, as consumers, you've all been the recipients of a business's sales channels, communication channels, customer service channels, and distribution channels. They just exist in every single business. Nobody expects a new business owner, especially one that's never had a business before, to automatically understand all these different channels in these boxes, but to be aware of them so that as you're moving forward, you can plan for how you're going to market to them and what partners and activities you have to do for that. And as you work on the sales process on the mission mapping worksheet, then you can transfer that to your channels box and extrapolate the key activities and partners and services that you need to do that. And we'll talk about all of those this time. Let's start with acquiring customers. How are you, the channels, the customer acquisition channel? How are you getting customers? Terrell, I'm gonna pick on you first because your business is actually helping other businesses acquire customers, right?
Yes.
And you're doing that through social media channels, right?
That is correct.
And coincidentally, that's how you are going to market to your potential customers, correct?
Yes.
So the question is, are your customer avatars the type of businesses that will be receptive to social media marketing to know about your business? Is that the best channel you can use to reach your customers?
No.
Okay, so if it's not, what other channel would there be?
So granted, yes, it is. social media it's going to play a major role, but in person works a lot of times. You have social media, but you don't know how to use it. So it's kind of like I have the advantage per se because I know how to use it, but my avatar, my customers, they're just on it, just scrolling, just using it, they're not properly using it. So essentially, yes, I'll be able to use social media to find them, and in person and different strategies. When Dr. Russ put the advisors on here, I just thought about it. I'm like, oh, what if I just go to different advisors and see, hey, are you working with entrepreneurs that need marketing? 'Cause 9 times out of 10, that advisors, they know something, they know somebody, So to answer your question, it's probably through referrals, different connections, social media, and it's endless, I believe.
Well, and those are the channels you're going to start to list on your business model canvas. And you'll list them in ways that they relate back to the avatars that you've identified. Again, whether you're using color coding or you're connecting them with a string, whatever it is, those channels that you just mentioned, some may apply more to one type of customer avatar than another. They will overlap, not mutually exclusive again. But you need to identify how that customer, how you're going to reach the people to become your customer based on your avatars. Social media, you said, referrals, you said, and personal contact. Matthew, you said that getting out there and talking to organizations about what you have and about their place in that ecosystem that surrounds your industry is I thought a preferred method. Is that the preferred method to reach your potential customers? Is it cold calling?
It seems to be fairly effective when I've done it. I haven't done too much of it in the last week or two. I've been focusing more on just not spamming everybody, but getting that out and seeing how those different approaches measure up. Because yeah, again, I got that huge list of like those DFC coalitions, and filtering through who's got a website, who's got email showing on their website, telephone, contact form. And the other is like, who's responding from those things. So you have an email address. Well, the person in that public facing email address may not be the same person receiving that contact form submission. It's weird. Owners of businesses can be like, I want to be the one receiving the contact form submission, but I don't want my email address out there.
Right.
So you peons get the email address and you have to deal with all the spam and everything, but I'll do the contact forms. So it's like, okay, first go through email everybody that I can, and then do the contacts. And it's like I get more responses through the contact forms, what I'm seeing, than just like the email addresses. And then yeah, next week getting into more of the cold calling. One thing I want to do is create some content for social media so that when people are coming looking, like who is this guy? There's something right there in their face.
Yep, absolutely. Alex, how are you reaching your avatars?
Well, as stated before, I think that social media advertisements will be the #1 way to get out there. I think, like you and I discussed privately, that just being on site somewhere is really important. And I find truth in that because I've been places like Jenny or other spring spots where my setups get attention, and you have to have a conversation about your setup with somebody. Oh, where did you buy that part? How did you install this part? Things like that. So I think just being there on any of these sites is a great way to reach potential customers.
It's really interesting. You all said this and maybe didn't even realize it, but your customer acquisition channels can and for effectiveness most likely be integrated. You have a website, you have social media content that drives them to your website, which has an order form on it, or it has a contact form on it. You've integrated different channels to reach your customer so that you can kind of have this path that you presume they might follow. You can't predict what people are going to do, right? But you've given them the steps that they need to reach out to you to find out what they need to know to become your customer. And that leads right into the other channels that we'll talk about shortly, like the sales channels and the after sale service. So it's let me ask this, Matthew, how many people are doing what you're doing?
Like other competitors, there's at least 5 other lockbox kind of companies out there.
And how are they reaching their customers?
A variety of things like pay-per-click and attending events. And I'm pretty sure that they, some of them have sales teams. I know that like the LockMed company doesn't, they just do pay-per-click on occasion. And they're just kind of running off of residual, like previous efforts, just thanks to like, being in business, word of mouth, that kind of stuff.
How do
And
you
that's
know that?
because I ran LockMed for a while.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, no, people don't change.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting that you at least have that insider information, because otherwise you're looking from the outside and in, seeing how people are doing it, and you don't really know what's effective. I imagine that since you ran that, you kind of know whether or not pay-per-click is really the best way to reach customers.
Not for like, I mean, it can be, depending on where people are at in their cycle. But yeah, honestly, calling, that direct reaching out to them so that they're not trying to like be looking for something. It's the most effective thing. And I don't think that I don't think the competitors are doing that. I don't think the organizations are really getting their doors beaten down by people trying to sell lock boxes. Just because it's such an afterthought when it comes to a lot of this stuff.
So I imagine education is a large component of what you have to do to attract customers.
There's a little
Why
bit
what
to
you
that.
have is important. Why what you have is important and why they need it.
But yeah, showing that it is better than what is out there. There's a bunch of people that work in prevention that are familiar with lock boxes and stuff. And so showing how, okay, well, it's steel and it's affordable. It's not, plastic or MDF. Like there's the product comparison there to really kind of show those people that are making the really big purchases. I'm trying to shift from just a general like, okay, this customer over here, this coalition that needs 20 or 30 boxes, and it's like a few $100s, or maybe something even a little larger for a few thousand. I want to start doing some of the big game hunting. Like people that run entire state public health departments and get them to like do some sort of funneling thing on there, or something like that. Something bigger. Get them to becoming more to me versus me reaching out to them.
Are they purchasing these from some of the other providers of lock boxes?
Yeah, I do get, like I got a few responses last week of, hey, thanks for reaching out. We already have a provider. And they'll never name them either, which is so frustrating. It's like, just tell me who my competitor is and where, so I can break their kneecaps. No. But yeah, that stuff.
Did you have something to say, Russ?
I was just thinking, I mean, there's a couple of categories here too of seekers and non-seekers. So there are some people who are looking, and where and how do you put your message out to them is something to think about. And then for those who you have a high confidence that they have the problem because of what they do, but they may not be seeking at the moment. So how do you reach out to them? What type of a message do you put in their path so that they can see it and then say, oh, wow, yeah, I really have that problem and I didn't realize it was a solution. And here it is that you pop up.
That's kind of the messaging that I've been using now. It's just, I'd like to help you with your outreach and prevention efforts. I provide wholesale medication lock boxes that can be used to reduce overdoses, addiction, and harm in the home. Are you open to having a conversation?
Mhm.
That's it.
Mhm.
I got a $140,000 sale with that kind of an email. So I'm sticking with it.
So
If it
one of
works.
your,
Right?
yeah, I'll be right with you, Terrell. So one of your communication channels is email
Right.
and another is cold calling.
Mhm.
And another might be, are you doing any social media geared to these organizations?
That's what I'm going to be ramping up, getting things a little more curated for the messages that they need to hear.
Do you want me to refer you to a guy that's really good at social media? I got somebody in mind.
Yeah. Do you know somebody that's good at social media?
Terrell, you had a question?
I'm the one. Thank you.
Right?
That was the answer. That wasn't the question. We're not playing Jeopardy today.
I'll take Terrell for 100, please.
Absolutely. So Rose, I do have a question. When it comes to, I typed it. Will it be best to create multiple business model canvas that focus on different types of avatars?
Oh, that's one way to do it. The glory of all of this tool is that you can use it the way it's most effective for you. At Action Zone, we have a milestone map, and we actually have at some point filled out all of the worksheets. And our milestone map is, we have a master for the entire organization, and then we have milestone maps for each division within Action Zone: marketing, finance, education, administration. And then the master one has the main list of everybody and what our overall goals are, and then different milestone maps for each of those individuals on the board and working in the business. Your business model can be the same way. You can have one master business model if you choose, and then segregate different models for it. It makes it easier to see each avatar. But I think it's important to have an overall view as well, so that you can see, especially as you start to grow, you might find that some of the avatars that you discovered are just not as profitable as another. And you can see that individually on if you created one canvas for them. But then if you omitted their information on a master, you probably wouldn't capture the same data holistically to see, I don't need that customer. I need to move away from marketing to that group of people, because they're not the most profitable group. They're more challenging. They're less profitable. Their ticket item is, their invoice amount is considerably less than my average. So having individual business model canvases for those avatars is a great way to work on each avatar, but make sure you keep one in the aggregate, because the whole picture tells you as much information as the individual, or more, as the individual avatars.
Okay. Thank you, Rosie.
So the point about communication channels is that that goes back to the relationships that those avatars want, how you communicate with them to acquire them, to make them aware of your product or service so that they could potentially come into the pipeline as customers. It's important to understand what those channels, communication channels are, how you're using them to acquire them as a customer, how that differs from how you're providing communications after the sale or during the sales process, and how they all integrate together. Alex, using you as an example, if you have a website that talks about the Cheaters Keystone, and yet you're doing social media on various camping groups and survivalist groups to market the Keystone to, and you're driving them back to your website, which has your sales channel, which is an e-commerce store on your website, versus being able to pick up the phone and say, hey, Alex, I want to order 10, but has an option to do that for other, like you said, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, an option for bigger organizations that want to do bigger orders to actually reach out to you. That would be a separate sales channel. But the communication channels, you want to make sure that you've integrated them in a way that's logical and easy for them to get from knowing about your product or service and getting to the pre-sale part to the actual sale. So integrate your channels to drive that flow to the sale. Does that make sense? So Matthew, you're sending out emails. Some may want to pick up the phone and call you. Some of them may email you back and say, oh my gosh, you have no idea how timely your email is. We were just having this conversation in my board meeting. Where can I order them? They don't need anything else from you. We have a tendency to then want to explain more about it after they've already said they want to have it. And we're not telling them, and Russ will tell you a great story about this. We tell them more about the product and service when all they really want to know is, how can I buy it? Right, Russ?
Yes, yes. I had that experience with someone who did a presentation. I absolutely loved what they talked about and what they could do, and it was something that I desperately wanted. And at the end, toward the end of the meeting, I said, "Hey, when can we get together and have a conversation about this?" And we got on a call. They And I said, so how do we get started? And they never told me how. They told me, oh, we have another webinar coming up. We have, some, you can jump in on this and this. And I'm like, I just want to know how to pay you. Tell me how to pay you and we get started. And they never did. So, they kind of lost me as a customer. I figured they couldn't do what they said they could do. I knew it was a great idea because I'd had the same idea, but they didn't bring it to reality. There's one other thing about this too, and it kind of on the other side of it is selling beyond the close. So they really weren't selling beyond the close to the point that they were trying to persuade me that what they had was good. They just couldn't close the deal. But some people, when the people say, I'm ready to buy, they just keep going on and on and on and talking about what they do so well. Okay, yeah, I got it. I got it. Take my money.
So when you're looking at your channel, your acquisition channels, and when I talk about integrating them so that you get the full life cycle of that customer to the sale, make sure it gets to the sales part, and that you have demonstrated the ability to sell that product, the desire to sell that product, and not want to keep sending them through a loop of more marketing and more advertising. We've seen this, and back when I had my food truck, this was really popular, and it's the reason I wrote a book on food trucks and sold it specifically on eBay, because everybody else there that was trying to sell this is a business that I think you can do book, they showed a video or they described it on eBay, and if you click this link you'd get more information, and they showed a video of somebody with great enthusiasm talking about this product will help you sell 5,000 hot dogs in a weekend. And then you click there and it said it would take you to a sales page, but it's another testimonial that if you sign up now, I will send you even more stuff. And at the end of the day, you weren't getting easily to where you could just buy the product. It's really, really easy to fall into that trap. And having sold insurance and real estate, I can tell you the hardest lesson I ever learned was when to shut up. You state your price. They've already come to you and said, done the research they needed, and they want to know what the price is. You state your price and then you shut up. You do that also through the communication channels you have set up with social media, with a website, with a sales page. Don't feel like you have to over explain it. If they're at your sales page and they put one in their cart, they don't need to know about anything more. They just need to know how to give you their money. So that's the pre-sale piece. What kind of things you've talked about? Direct email. I imagine direct mail probably fits somewhere in many of these businesses. Social media campaigns, a website. Look at the left side of your business model now, just related to the channels that you think you need to use to acquire the customer. And what do you need to do that? Do you need a domain provider to purchase a domain name? Do you need a website platform so that you can build a website? Do you need a content writer or a social media expert to contract with to do that? What are the things that you need? And these people are your key partners and resources on your business model. What are the things you need? Your resources would be Wix or any of the other website platforms, or GoDaddy or Namecheap for domain names. Your key activities then would be buying a domain name, setting up the website. See people typing and writing furiously. So I don't want to keep going because I want you to catch up. Any questions about how that key activity of communicating to get customers and the activities and partnerships that you need to do that? And on your business model where it says key partners, we're not talking about a business partner in your business. We're talking about UPS and Federal Express's relationship with Amazon, or DoorDash and Uber Eats relationship with Chili's and Applebee's down the street. They're not business partners, but they couldn't do what they do without a collaborative partner like Uber Eats and DoorDash, or Federal Express and UPS. Just so that I don't want you to miscommunicate that or misunderstand that I'm saying that you have business partners. These are just other organizations that you must have a collaborative arrangement with in order to deliver your product or service. Alex, if you have a manufacturer for your Keystone, that would be one of your key partners. Unless you're going to be out there welding them yourself, in which case your key partners are going to be the welding supply store, right? That might be your resources as well as your partner. Is that clear as mud? I know it's, we throw this information at you. It's all in the book. We just try to pick out what you need to know to get enough information to begin acting on it. Nothing we do is theoretical. Everything that we tell you every week is something that you can actually act on that day and the rest of the week, that gets you one step further and one step closer to when you're actually making the kind of consistent revenue that you want. So and sometimes I belabor the point, and I'll shut up now. We'll go on to the next subject. So now you've got them interested. Now you've got sales channels to think about. Sales channels can be things that you create, like an e-commerce page on your website, or they could be an e-commerce site that somebody else runs and you just have your listing on it, like Etsy or eBay. Is Instagram selling stuff now? Can you do that on Instagram? I don't know if you can or not.
I think I've seen it. I thought I saw
Yeah.
it.
So now you've got a sales platform. You've got to figure out what way they're going to purchase your product. They could call you up and say, I want it. They can email you. You can have an e-commerce site where they can buy the product direct without any interaction with you at all other than through your website. I think I know the answer to this, but Terrell, how will people, and this goes back to the sales process, after the offer, how they can transact the sale? What do you need to consummate that sale?
What do I need as far as like where they're going to go?
Yeah.
So it depends on where they would like to communicate. Ideally, is the website, but they want to communicate on Instagram, on TikTok, through email. Like ideally, it's the website, but I want to communicate wherever they are.
And for the sales process though, are you going to have a buy now button, or because of the type of business you have, do you have to have a personal consultation about the services they need and the prices for each of those services and invoice them rather than having an e-commerce site where they can just order it?
It's the second one that you said, that you mentioned.
So your
The
business is very consultative. You consult with the customer in that sales process. You tell them, as Russ said on the mission mapping worksheet, you tell them how you deliver your product or service, but to actually get the sale, that sales channel includes this consultation that you have with them one-on-one about what their goals are and what they need, what you plan to deliver, how much of that do you plan to deliver it, how many hours are they giving you, or how many social media clips, or how long is that engagement, and how many times a week, whatever the situation is, that you will do that as a on a consultative basis rather than over the web. They can't just go pick one from column A and two from column B and hit pay.
Right.
What do you need to be able to do that?
Customers.
Yeah. Thanks.
What is that the right
So-
answer?
So on the e-commerce side, you need a website, you need a payer, you need a pay system, you need
Okay.
nothing. But as you're going to be doing this as an individual, what things do you have to do, your key activities, and what resources do you need to do that? And do you have any key partners that you might need to facilitate that actual sale? Not talking about the communication before then. You've got them. They want you.
Mhm.
What do you need to do to make that sales channel? You've already got them. The sales channels are similar to communication because you're using sales channels to reach them to buy. But once you actually get to the process of the sale, what are the things you need to facilitate that sale?
That is a great question.
Well, again, second time today, I had a thought in my head and it's completely gone. Oh, Matthew, one of your sales channels are commission sales reps, right?
I'm looking into that. It's not in place or anything.
No, but it's one of the options that you've talked about.
Yeah.
As real estate uses, a real estate broker contracts with real estate sales agents to make their money. They don't necessarily, many of them do go out and make their own sales, but a successful broker with 300 agents doesn't have time to go sell themselves. So their key partners are the real estate sales agents that go out and actually make the sales, and then the broker gets a piece of that. Terrell, you might have at some point in your business, and we all hope to have this problem in the future, is that right now you can do all of that. But somewhere on that milestone map, you might be looking at the the team section, because you can't be both the salesman, the closer, the content provider, and the administrator of the account long term. You can do it if you have 4 or 5 customers, but you need to start thinking about what you're doing today and what you need to do that today, and then how that looks moving forward as you gain more customers. When you looked at that, the money measure worksheet, and you decided how many customers you needed to reach your goal, you have to consider whether that's something you can do yourself to generate all of those sales. And if you can't, what you need to do to be able to manage those numbers of customers.
So how will I be able to do the numbers for how many team members I will need, or can start planning ahead for that?
Well, my guess would be, and this is just a guess, my guess would be that you know how many hours you are committing to your customer, how many hours of time it's going to take you to develop a social media marketing plan, and then develop and create the actual content, and then manage the distribution of that content as you indicated to the customer that you would, and then the time it will take you to evaluate the effectiveness of those campaigns so that you can report back to your customer what worked and what did not work, and why and how it should be changed for the future. So when you add up all of those hours that you're spending on that one customer, which, and Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, but you should probably evaluate that before as you design the social media packages you plan to present, because you don't want to underprice it so that you're not making any money for your time, and you also need to consider how much time per customer you're going to take, because I don't know, Terrell, I'm pretty sure you have the same 24 hours in every day that I do. And so if you've got one customer that's going to take 4 hours of your day every day for 3 months while you fulfill the contract you have with them, then you have at most another 8 hours. And that's if you work 12 hours a day. At most, you have another 8 hours to live your life, feed yourself, have a family, maybe entertaining something, and then try to get a couple more customers in. So you can estimate based on the packages that you create for your social media services, how many hours you know you're going to spend. It's not something you need to tell them unless they ask, but you need to know how many hours you're going to spend so you know how many customers that you can take in a week or in a day. When I was doing notary services and I was doing loan signings, I knew how much time it took me to do a loan signing. I knew approximately how much time it would take me to drive from my location to a 5 or 10 mile radius around where I was taking those assignments. And so I knew the travel time that it would take. So I knew that for a loan signing, I couldn't do more than 3 or 4 a day because the travel time and the amount of time sitting in front of the customer. And when you're only doing at that time getting like $100 or $125 a signing, my income was limited. I needed to find something else in order to reach my bigger number, my annual number. I needed something else that didn't take the same amount of time because physically I could not do more than 3 or 4 a day unless I worked 24/7, which we cannot do. Does that make sense?
That make a lot of sense. I appreciate it.
You know, I want to, this is a little bit more advanced, but I want to offer something else to think about, which is, you know, creating an organizational chart so that you may have one side of your organizational chart has in-house, the other side has outsource, and you can start to organize how you're looking at the people who are supporting you or engaged with you. And in that way, then you can start putting people into boxes, and then you can put you know prices and costs associated with each one of those. You know, salaries for your in-house employees, you know, prices for your vendors and your suppliers and different things like that. It's just a way to be organized and see it visually. And then, of course, we go back and we recommend the E-Myth Revisited again.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. I was just about to ask that. So the organization, I remember hearing about how they was reading and saying this is what you need to do, but I can just go on Google and search up organization
Yeah,
chart.
you know, and I'm talking about more like a hierarchical thing where, you know, you're at the top because you're the CEO of the company. You know, you have a line down, and then, you know, one side to your left might be your in-house, and in the in-house you would have, you know, you could have somebody who takes the photo, somebody who does the video, somebody who, you know, processes the audio, somebody who does, you know, the graphics and different things like that. If you want to have those people inside your company. On the other side, you might have, you know, somebody who, um, you know, creates your marketing material, somebody who does your production, you know, those kinds of things. So again, it's a little bit of a creative exercise, but it's just a format and a template that might help you organize that and then associate processes, prices with it, so you can figure out how much you have outgoing, and then that'll also help you determine then how much you need incoming from a price standpoint.
Okay, I appreciate it.
And what's really interesting when you're first starting a business is, and the idea of creating an organizational chart for what your company looks like in 5 years is really a great exercise, because when you first create it and you're first building this business, your name is going to be on every line of every position in the company because you don't have anybody else. As you start generating, this is why I said you have to understand how much time it's taking you to do something. Unless you are coming out the gate, starting with enough funds to fully staff your organization, every one of those titles that Russ just read off, as well as the administrative assistant and the bookkeeper and the compliance officer and any other thing that you need, any other role you need to make your business function, those all have your name at the top until you start getting revenue and are able to start hiring people. So it's really it's a great exercise to see what it looks like built out so that you can determine as you're starting to grow what you need next, as well as what your limitations are when you first start. Underpricing ourselves is probably one of the biggest challenges new business owners face. They think, oh, it's just me, I can do it for this price. But when you start thinking about the number of hours it's going to take you to do that, you thought you were making $100 an hour because that's what you bid on when you bid the job. But in actuality, you're making about $8.12 an hour because the time it takes to do all of this stuff, including the time it takes you to get new customers while you're working on this one and manage the sales of the customer you have, as well as the post-service loyalty that you want, the post-sale service to generate customer loyalty that you want to do. So it's not just about spending 4 hours a day creating social media. There are a couple of different exercises in the manual that I think you can go through the book and look at. I'll give you some ones that I really want you to think about, but I want to draw your attention to page 75. This is a graph of the demographics that use particular online resources. So, for example, YouTube is 82%. I'm sorry, 80% of men use YouTube, 82% of men use YouTube, and 80% of women use YouTube. But then if you go down to all the way to the other side next door, 10% of the users on there are 10% of men use Nextdoor and 16% of women. This is all told, all women and all men. Look at the age ranges. If you in your customer avatar have decided that your customer is, and Alex, you're a great one for this, that your customer is between the ages of 25 and 40, this chart will help you understand where they are getting their information online and some of the best platforms to use to reach that particular demographic. And I think we talked a couple of weeks ago about your local library card. Do you remember that? Did we have that conversation? That this kind of information is in tomes of books and resources that the library has access to, that they will give you access to for free. And a librarian will even help you find that. And Matthew, when you're looking at dealing with organizations, they have this same type of information available for organizations. So if you're looking at that list of 600 organizations that you mentioned, you can find out very specific information about those 600 that might help you decide the hierarchy of your potential customers. Because you could throw something out at 600 of them to see what sticks, but you could also gather enough information about each of them to know which would be a better first customer, closest to the dollar, than ones that you might have to massage, the relationships you might have to, I know I said that was probably a Freudian slip, the relationships that you'll have to massage to get them to buy from you. So getting all of the information that you can about your avatars and where they're hanging out and where they're buying from now, you can find all that information. This chart from Pew Research was just a great example of how to identify who's really using these sites. And when you're doing social media, you want, or any type of online marketing, you want to make sure you're getting it in the right place. Because if you're looking for women between the ages of, let me see, where's the ages? If you're looking for anybody between the ages of 18 and 29, you aren't doing it on WhatsApp Reddit, and Nextdoor, because they're all hanging out in the other places. It's not that you won't find some, but that's not where they're predominantly hanging out. And I don't know, I don't remember, oh, this was 2021 is when this survey was conducted. So I would venture to say that some of these are a little bit different today. Terrell?
So we actually went the day that we spoke about the library when you said it, when you Dr. Russ said it, we actually went. It was a lot of information, but I didn't find this probably because I wasn't looking up the right information. As far as the corporations to look for, is there a way? Will it be the same Pew Research Center, or will it be underneath a different category?
Probably not, but if you talk to a librarian and tell them exactly what you're looking for, that you want the demographic information about certain corporations, certain businesses that fall into a certain annual revenue, or they're at a certain zip code, they can help you find all of those. The librarians themselves are your best resource because they are familiar with all of these resource materials, even if they're not specifically experienced in the business that you're talking about. It was much easier when they had specified business librarians who really did nothing but cater to small business and get the information that they needed. Those still exist, but they don't call them that anymore. You can go to your library and ask, is there a little business librarian at this branch? And if not, just say, this is what I'm looking for. What research, what online resource can I access that will tell me this?
Okay. And one more question. Well, I think you just answered it. Just go to the library, just ask about the demographics, about the annual revenue from this amount to that amount, and then someone should be able to know what we're speaking about.
What you should ask them is what you're trying to discover. So if you are
Okay.
trying to discover how many small businesses are within a 10-mile radius of your own personal zip code so that you can service them, they can give you all of the businesses that are in that 10-mile radius. And then you can say, can you tell me which businesses within this 10-mile radius? Can I drill down a little bit further? Can I only talk to the ones that are making at least 250,000 in revenue or $250 million in revenue? You know, look at Terrell's face. They have that information. You just have to keep asking more questions after the initial one to drill down to what you're trying to find. But if you just sit down with a librarian and say, I'm starting a business, I'm trying to find businesses that make between $1 and $5 million that are in this zip code. Can you tell me where I can find that information? And then the conversation will branch off from there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rosie.
You're welcome. Alex.
So I just wanted to add into Terrell to help answer Terrell what he was looking for there. ChatGPT is an amazing service that if you use the free service, it is only updated to the world to September 2021, I believe. But if you pay for the $20 or whatever, literally a subject matter expert in whatever you ask it. So if you're looking for demographics for a certain thing, it will give you those demographics. And as long as you stay in the tab, just like how Chrome has a tab, it will tailor its responses specific to what you're looking for. So like Rosie said, if you want to break it down into like who's making what, where, in what part of your city, let's say Tampa, for instance, it will tell you, okay, Seminole Heights has X amount of people at 150K. New Tampa has X amount of people on 150K, and it'll start breaking it down for you so that then you can start making your own graphs and things like that. If you pay for ChatGPT, it will even make your own graph, like an actual image for you, so that you have something paper. But don't it's really important to learn how to leverage AI even for informational purposes, because it will fill in a lot of those holes for you, I think.
I appreciate it, Alex.
So your task this week is to create a sales or a communication plan, as well as discover your sales channels. And it's going to require, first of all, thinking about what we talked about today, and then reading the rest of the manual on this, because there's a lot of more in-depth information on the in the manual. Developing a communication plan is probably something that you do, Terrell, when you're or will do when you're talking to a customer about their social media plan. You're creating a marketing plan for them that you're going to post this many times for this on this many places online, and this is who we're targeting. The communication plan that you develop for your business is essentially the same as a marketing plan, except that it's how you're communicating with your customers, whether it is to create brand awareness or to finalize a sale or to provide after the sale service or to create loyalty in your customers to keep them coming back. So there is a form on page 81 that you can use to create a communication plan. And it really just gives you an opportunity to list out the things that we already discussed. You know, what are you trying to accomplish? How are you going to get that message out? What channels are you using for that? And then read more about the sales channels in particular, because the sales channels are the lifeblood of your business, but you have to understand where you're getting your sales from and where you're going to use that market in conjunction with your communications plan. How are you integrating your different communication channels and marketing channels to get to the sale? We talk about that. And then finally, in this section, which is not insignificant, even though it's probably the smallest section in this chapter, is your distribution channels. How are you distributing your product? We will talk about this in addition to the milestone map questions that Russ mentioned, and we could talk about on Wednesday. We'll talk about any of these channels topics. And if you get stuck, if you're on trying to do your communication plan, or you can't figure out exactly where your sales channels can be, or you look at the distribution methods and you're not sure which one applies to you, remember, none of these are mutually exclusive. Your business is going to utilize some, all, or a combination of overlapping between relationships and sales channels and communication channels and distribution channels. This is where it starts to get so sticky that you really are trying to track by avatar what you're doing, unless there's one avatar, a multiple of avatars that do the same thing. So don't let it trip you up. Just, again, this is just stuff for you to be aware of as you get from developing this business to actually starting to sell to customers and then grow that customer base. Any questions? I'm sorry, Terrell. Are we keeping you up? And we will be on, are you going to join us Wednesday, Russ? I don't know. How many words was that?
It was one.
I saw your lips moving a lot of different ways.
I should be able to. I have to look. I have to make sure I don't have a conflict, but I think I should be able to.
Yeah, and I plan to be on Wednesday as well. So any questions about anything we've touched on, things that popped into your mind that didn't have anything to do with what we were talking about? Well, it was awfully nice to see you all. And I will see you on Wednesday night.
Okay, have a great week, everybody.
So,
Yes, Terrell.
I was about to say, have a great
Was
weekend.
it you? Okay. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.